this was like a Graham Norton show, John, you'd be advertising the new Lamborghini car to sell. Jennifer, you'd obviously have a book to launch. Patsy, the times and life of Patsy, and Michael would,
if it was Graham Norton, I'd have a good strong drink in front of me as well. Remember that?
Well, you don't know what's in that water.
Better not be Bacardi.
So, Michael, you are the master of all quizzes. So obviously, you would have a book on the mountain quiz. And Pat, you're a man of ghosts and many mysterious stories and times gone by. So, I suppose I'll just give a wee intro now and get the headphones on. And if anybody needs to go to like the toilet or anything like that, there, I don't know, like in the teacher's days, you put your hand up and you instead sit down. Well, that's what happened to me, Pat. It happened to you too. And, so I should say, welcome everybody here today. This is, I suppose, the biggest amount of people I've ever talked to on a podcast. Thank you for coming. You're all staring at me there, really shocked looking. You do know who I am, don't you? I hope you do, anyway. Or I haven't done my research right. But you're all welcome. This is a series we're now doing called Voices of the Sperrins. It's an extension of what we were doing before, but the Heritage Lottery have come in and supported us to get a few more done. We're looking at things like yourselves. You came in and chatted to me and Stella and Nathan, and we had a wee chat about the past, where you've lived and how you've gone on and things like that there. I suppose this podcast, for people listening, there's people out there that know every one of you, and I suppose in a way you'll be telling stories that are from the past, but to me, I think this whole programme is about heritage. It's about protecting the stories of old and protecting how an old village town would look like. And we'll be talking tonight or today, this evening, this morning. I'd want to let people think that this could be any time, but it is dark outside, or else we've got the real Hollywood lights going on there. So, and I suppose, in a way, there are 5 friends. And I've never, so far in the Voices of Sperrins, had people on. Patsy's saying, I'm not so sure if I'm a friend of Michael anymore. Patsy, is that right?
Because I'm looking at him here now.
I'm reading your eyes, Patsy, and I never was as scared looking at you as my life.
Paddy, jealousy is a terrible thing.
Talk about being dropped in it.
Could I just say, Patsy, I know you and me haven't got that luxurious colour of Michael. He's just back from sunny Spain, so fair play to him. So,
on purpose, just to be ready for this.
Thank you very much. I should have put makeup on there, but we didn't. We don't do makeup here in the screen Draperstown. So I'm going to go from the left here now. So welcome to Voices from the Sperrins. We have 5 friends from the top of the town. I'm going to let them introduce themselves individually. So on my left is...
John Johnston. I was originally born in High Street.
I'm Jennifer Sorry, I'm Jennifer Mawhinney.
see my head. See my head. No, I knew that I was going to sit John and Jennifer beside me, and I thought, Stella said to me, don't you say Jennifer Johnson. And you done it for me. So, sorry, we'll go again there. Just go ahead, Jennifer.
I'm Jennifer Mawhinney. I was brought up on the Magherafelt Road, and I went to school in Draperstown in the 50s and 60s.
I'm Patsy Cassidy, a Magherafelt Road man for 80-odd years, 83 years. I went to school in the primary school down in Burnside.
And you're a handsome devil.
Oh.
Should have said that too. Give me that glint. That's a better glint there. Sorry.
I can't help these things.
Michael Kelly, Magherafelt Road. As opposed to High Street that John said. I don't know where High Street comes into, because we're all Magherafelt Road people. John, you got to get your geography correct, as you would do.
I'm up to date.
John
is a master of Google.
Yeah, but for a man who likes antiques, he's never up to date, let's be honest. But anyway, unlike everybody else, grew up on the Magherafelt Road, pretty much still there, and it was away just for about 10 years, and the lure of Draperstown pulls me back, or else a job. I can't remember which one it was, but here I am again.
And I'm Pat Kelly, the older brother of Michael. Likewise, I've spent near enough all my life on the Magherafelt Road, apart from 4 years in Fenham, Newcastle upon Tyne, where I became a teacher, and 4 years I lived down in Craigavon. the rest of the time, Magherafelt Road.
You still have a good Draperstown accent, Pat.
Still have.
I didn't hear you going, all right, there, mate. You know, I didn't see any drop there, so you didn't get the Geordie accent.
I didn't get the Geordie accent.
You didn't get the...
Nor the Craigavon accent either.
You've got the
Or should I say the Lurgan accent?
I just wanted to say too before I take off that I don't know if everybody would know this or not, but there's a Pat, Paddy and Patsy here. There's 3 P's. I just thought I'd let you know that. And Patsy, you told me a story earlier on about the 3 Paddys when you were downstairs.
Yeah.
And I just thought I'd bring that on for you here now. The 3 P's are here, and I hope that makes you happy. Do you know what I mean? So I'm going to start up at the top of the Magherafelt Road where you live, Patsy. And so you were chatting the last time we met, and we were chatting downstairs about your father started the business. And do you want to give a wee insight into the time scale when that was? And
actually, my mother started a shop on number 19 on the Magherafelt Road. That had been about 1936. 1937, and she had a shop there for, I think, about a couple of years. Then she acquired a site of Michael Reagan just across the road, and it's now 20 Magherafelt Road. And that was about 1930, it was 37.
37.
From that on.
And so at that time, your mother and father, how many was in your family at that time?
We had 4 boys. I was the second oldest.
And do you want to shout out their names there? For the people?
Finton was the oldest, myself next, Oliver, and then Kevin.
And did they live local then after?
No. Well, my father was big into education, and the boys all went to St. Columba's, and after they finished their school in the Burnside.
We'll come back to the school again, because I know you all attended that school. And as I move down, I suppose, a bit to where you are, John, and your family background, and I suppose you can take us back, I suppose, back in time to when it all begun and how it all begun to how you landed where you are.
Well, my great-grandfather originally lived in Dromard, and he moved down in the very early 1800s to what would have been the Cottage Row then. And a brother of his had been to America and served his time with German joiners and learnt how to make a spoked wheel for a cart. And he came home and they started a coach. He started a coach business there, and then it progressed. My father didn't think there was much of a future in horse-drawn carriages in the 1900s. He had served his time with a firm, P.J. Carleton, which had a garage there where you entered Bradley Park, and in the early 1900s he started up at what would be 75 High Street now.
Is where you are now?
No, it's the old Green Garage.
Oh, the one that...
Yeah, where I am would have been the coach factory.
Right.
And after I left school in about 72, I came home and served my time with my father, and have been there since.
Can you, even when you were growing up, you and Jennifer, was there any sort of, I don't want to use the word relics for coaches, was there any coaches preserved? Or
there was no coaches, there was plenty of pieces of coaches, and some of the old, there had been a steam engine to drive a sawmill in where we were, and the chimney's still, part of the chimney is still behind the garage yet. There had been the remnants of the steam engine that drove the sawmill, and a great uncle of ours had lived in second house, the house to the right-hand side of the
just
garage.
there on the screen is your house.
That's our house, but there's a door to the right of the big doors there, and that took you into what would have been our...
yeah.
That would have taken you into Bob Johnson's, and above that door you'll see a date stone established 1854, which is still there yet.
That's amazing.
That's when Billy came home from America and started. Our great-great-grandfather was a joiner at that stage, and he was a son of his and came home and started to make spoked wheels at that stage.
And for the likes of for people out there listening, knowing the way cars and tractors and machinery is now, John, going back to them days of spoked wheels, I'm sure that was quite a unique job to have. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And they actually went out around the country and selected different timbers. The wheel isn't all made of the one type of timber. The centre of it, I think, is made of elm. The spokes are made of ash, and the actual rim of it's made from beech. So they had to go and cut down their timber and bring it back and cure it for a couple of years before they would use it. So they were amazing. Actually cutting with cross cuts.
That's amazing.
And drawing the timber and remanufacture. And
was, in the area at the time, was there a lot needed? You know what I mean? Because I suppose, was that still a time where we were talking, like the horse and cart, or, there
was quite a few. And I think they had maybe 4 or 5 employees working. One of them was actually Hearn Brothers' father. Jimmy Hearn served his time with Bob Johnson.
There you go. There's one for people out there listening, John. That's a good one. And and then I suppose Jimmy went on then.
Yeah, he went on and started a carpentry business up behind where, beside where the old picture house used to be.
Yeah, and where they're still at to this.
Where they are to this present day.
That's amazing. And but we'll come back then, John, after to the transition then between that to engines and different things. But I'm just that last picture. I don't know if you get up again, Nathan. No, that one there. For people looking at that, you've got is that an old 135 tractor?
No, that's an old TE20, and there's a Riley Elf parked beside it and a Vauxhall Viva.
Everybody out there, John, will be watching this and saying, "What does that townie know about tractors?" Michael, you know what I mean? Could you mention that? Could you?
Having lived opposite that house for an awful long time, of course.
Of course, Pat, I know you would have.
Definitely, I would have been heavy into my tractors. Yeah.
It's just for people out there, and for people out there looking at this. John, you're still there, John. Yeah. Your home house is still there. And could I just ask above, the wee door up above, is that where people lived, or is that just...
No, those were just 2 windows to bring more light into the building.
There you go. There we are.
There was a loft up there, and that's where the carpenters would have made the coffins. They made furniture and coffins.
There you go.
Some of the carpenters, and actually
and they would have painted a lot of the carts up there too.
Yeah, they would have painted the carts up there. And we would have had a table at home, a mahogany table, and it was made by the carpenters. And there was one up with Cassie McGuigan and her hotel. And she had a table that was made down in Johnson's by the carpenters. But the coffins they made, they would have been covered with black material. They weren't like the polished coffins of nowadays. Yeah. They would have, but they would have to be shaped.
Yeah. And was that? Well, I don't want to say. Was it a busy business? I don't think it's. I don't think it's a thing to say. It was it about Patsy Highlander, but was it? Was it like a profitable business in them days? Because I know we'll be talking to Michael and Pat about their own father soon. But was who done it now? Did they just make the coffins, or were they part of?
Oh no, they just made the coffins and supplied them to the local undertakers.
That's brilliant, and thank you very much for that. Michael and Pat, what was it like for you two growing up? Because I know that you both became teachers, but I suppose take me back to your younger days, and because your own father was a businessman as well. So I suppose with people here, they're all ran businesses at the Magherafelt Road, top of the town, as I would see it. So tell us a wee bit about your growing up and your dad and his businesses and how that all went for you growing up. Because I know, Pat, in later life you went on and took over for a while as well, didn't you? And yeah, I remember that as well. So for you, Michael, just for your household, was there just yourselves, or was there? No,
there was just us two, because I suppose me being the youngest, it was you weren't dominated as such, but I would say my upbringing was rather sheltered, more sheltered, because I know Pat, when my father had the business, Pat from an early age would have been going out and helping and all of that, and I only really did that when Pat then moved over to Teacher Training College in 72. Then I went out at that stage and when I helped my dad, as Pat was saying earlier on. And that was just giving assistance. It's not something I would have warmed to, shall we say? It would have been my true and chosen vocation.
Obviously, there's a sequence of events when someone dies to be an undertaker.
There's an element, of course, there is. But then you helped out. You did what you could, whatever that was. You could never. It was never a case of, I'm not doing that. Oh no, you did it. You did it absolutely whenever you could.
Was it strange? What age would you have been then? You know, what
72. I'd been 15, 16 at that stage. You know, Pat had been. Pat will tell you more about that of his own dealings with that and his interest in that and the knowledge of people. But that's one thing that always amazed me about my father, and it'd be the same with John and John's father and Jennifer's father and people like that. Everybody knew everybody. Yeah. And I know that in my father's case, when it came to funerals and organising funerals, it was very much down to him and him alone as to what had to be done, how it had to be done, making a house presentable to the point of even maybe coming back to our house and finding rolls of wallpaper and go out to wallpaper the room in which the corpse was, or whitewash the outside of a house.
Holy God!
And perhaps quite literally come back in, being called out on a job on a night like tonight, which is not the best of nights, and going somewhere way up the country and coming back in at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, find wallpaper and go and wallpaper the house to make the house presentable.
And how did that look? Was that just something your father wanted to do and wanted?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, you go into some houses and the as it still is now, although less so now, the wake was a big thing and neighbours going in. The house had to be presentable. And if it wasn't, so he would have done that and took that upon himself. And that was just part of the way he.
That's amazing.
That's how he approached his particular job at that time. You know.
And how did your father come about then that he became like an undertaker?
Well, Pat could tell you more about that, but his father, our grandfather, who we never knew our grandparents at all.
They originated. My grandfather came from Doon.
Out by one unit, Pat?
Out up the Doon Road.
Yeah.
Shibby's Corner.
Yeah.
And up the Doon Road. Up beside Paddy Crigg's. Up beside Willie McGillion's home place.
Yes.
And Paddy Crigg one day took me up a lane and he showed me a little square of concrete and he says, that's where your grandfather came from.
There you go.
So if you look in the 1911 census, my grandfather was a driver in Timneys. And Timneys were the undertakers at that stage, or one of the undertakers. And
was that Matt Timney? Or was that have been their father?
That would have been, Frank Timney. But I think it was Frank's brother Matthew had married a clerkin, and my great-grandfather had married a clerkin. So there was a Timney and a Kelly married to 2 clerkin sisters, and that's how he came to be working in Timneys. And then somewhere down the line, my grandfather must have left Timneys and he started up on his own business. And he was living on the Magherafelt Road, the end house of what I would call the terrace. It was beside Maggie Rose Trainers, that house there. And he lived there with his second wife, Matilda Higgerty. and my father and Kathleen. And that's where that business started at. And they kept he had a yard, which is actually where your plantation centre, the library is. That was the old stables from Mawhinney's hotel, which was the police station.
Was that just at the edge?
Just at the end.
The community centre, isn't it?
The community centre.
And what was it? What hotel was there? Was it?
The police station?
Yeah, the police station was there.
Was Mawhinney's hotel.
Where Pauline Taylor's
Dentist is.
dentist is.
Yeah.
So this was the stable yard, where there was a 2-storied building and a shed to the side. The hearse was kept in the shed on the side, and then he had a space down the stairs in this 2-storied building where he kept the coffins and his taxi. And there was a large yard, and there was a wall right round it. And that's my first memories of, I suppose, about 3 or 4 going down there with my father, and he would have been taking in coffins off lorries and doing the coffins up, and that's where I started.
There you go. Well, just for people out there, there's a picture of your father at the minute, and it looks like a big tall man. I can remember him when I was younger, your father. Who's that gentleman?
That's Johnny Mick, and that's taken down at the port, and that was Mary Angela Kelly's wedding, daughter of Jimmy Mick up at Straw. You know the bridge, the house just over the bridge?
Yes.
And that, how I know that, that's all in the parish film.
Yes.
That's
so
that is somewhere down at Port Stewart. And that's Johnny Mick and my father. That would be about
the 60s, isn't it?
The end of the 60s, yeah.
Yeah, and
that was a black Zephyr, and he had one more black Zephyr. That was the last taxi that he had.
And so the taxi in them days, where were you? Where would the likes of your father been taxiing people to and from? Was it anywhere? Was it the Shebeens or
everywhere
bars
and
or
everywhere?
pubs? Well, obviously he would have met, like you chatted earlier on, Pat, about. I know people think, oh, it's a funeral business, but you met a lot of people. And for people out there that don't know how Irish wakes work, there's usually a big gathering. Is that all right to say, Pat?
Yeah.
A big gathering, and the prayer bit's done and the burial, and then in them days you were saying there was a local pub wherever the burial was, and then people got together, and you were saying that you met a lot of people from the town at that time.
I met people from all over the parish. My father would have. Before I was sort of taken out to the house where the people died, I was taken to the graveyard where the men were digging the grave the day before the funeral, and I met a lot of people, a lot of men from various parts of the parishes. And then, of course, when I went to funerals with my father, invariably after the funeral, they all retired to the pub. So it was Doyle's and Monina, McAllister's at Straw. That was mainly the two.
Yeah, and at that time there was other pubs in the area, wasn't there?
Oh, there was pubs. God, there was Hudy's pub.
Yeah.
There was Mickey Paul's in Doon.
Yeah.
There was the Shepherd's Rest.
Yeah.
There were 13, wasn't there, in the town?
There was about 14 or 15 in the town.
Yeah, people out there listening to this will think there was a wild drought in this town, John. Was there something in the water that made you want to drink the other type of holy water?
I have one story, and it was a clinker of a story. Martin the bookie, Pat O'Kane, Emmett O'Kane's father. So there was
Anne O'Kane's son.
Anne O'Kane's, yeah. So there was an occasion, anyway, that there was a remains had been left in Straw Church one evening, and my father and the relatives, whoever were there, retired over to McAllister's, as was the custom. So Martin O'Kane happened to be in the pub. Now, he wasn't part of anything to do with the funeral. So he says to my father during the time that they were there, "Paddy, I'll take a lift down to the town with you." So that was no problem. Paddy says, my dad says to Martin, "Not a problem, on ahead when we're heading down." So we never mentioned anything about hearse or anything. So when they were finished anyway, my father came out, Martin followed him out, and he got in beside my father in the hearse, and they were heading down Tanner Hill, and my dad began to think, Martin, you'll hardly want me to leave you up home in the hearse. So he says to Martin, where would I drop you off at? So Martin says to him, I'll just drop me off at the office, which is Macaulay's pub. So my dad pulls in front of Macaulay's shop, and Martin gets out, and he turns around to my father and he says, well, Paddy, I think I'll be the first man that ever to thank you for a lift in this machine.
He was the only man loved to tell the tale, Pat.
Well, he was the first man that I knew anyway to thank my father for a lift in the hearse.
Similar to that, going back to a wake at our mother's wake, there was a notable gentleman who, and my father did a lot, as we saw in the photograph, a lot of taxiing to weddings and so on. And this particular man says, your father, and we had a photograph of him beside the car, not that particular one, but a different one. He says, your father drove many a man to his fit, and it wasn't always in the hearse. So because he'd driven, this particular person he'd driven to his wedding as well, so he was linking both together.
Well, just on your speaking on your father's behalf, there, he loved soccer, and you then began to love soccer. Is that right? Tell your story
again, that would have been through his work as the taxi driver, because and through the 60s. Early 70s, he always had an organised lift of 3 or 4 men that he took. So anytime Northern Ireland were playing at Windsor Park in the home internationals against England, Scotland, Wales, European, probably World Cup matches and so on, he had that run was always there, always booked in. And part of his fare was that he got a ticket into probably the Spy and Copper or something like that in Windsor Park. And then because of that, you come back, say it was a Wednesday match or something like that, Thursday morning there was a programme
sitting there.
What date
would we be talking then?
We're talking 60s, the vintage of George Best and Derek Dugan and Pat Jennings and people of that ilk.
Amazing players at the time.
Oh, absolutely.
He was there the day that Gordon Banks flicked the ball up and Geordie Best knocked it over his head, put it into the goal. It was disallowed. So when was that? That would have been...
Well, the game. I remember the game was in colour, but that's a very, very famous one.
He was there that day.
And he was there the day that. And it's funny if they were watching something came up on Sky the other day, but it was the day that George Best just ripped Scotland apart. Absolutely ripped them apart. It was Dennis Law of Scotland and Dave Mackay, and just ripped them apart. And the Northern Ireland 1-0 called Dave Clemens scored the goal. But he was there that day. Notable games. But that's where that just triggered in getting programmes. And then his, I think, very good friend, his Michael Reagan, Paul's father, who had the butcher shop. Michael went to all these games. Michael also went to almost every FA Cup final in the late 50s, early 60s. And there was always a programme sitting from that. And say, we obviously never saw football on television, and Match Today didn't start.
But you still have them programmes?
They're kicking about somewhere.
Probably don't want to shout it out in case they're worth a lot of money now. So a lot of memorabilia now that's out there, from the past.
Well,
has become,
either you've got it in your house or I have it. But we have the programme of the 1966 World Cup final. We have that in the house. But I mean, I presume everybody's got that. Maybe not around here. I don't know, but we have
not
that.
Around here, I'd say.
But we have early 60s Spurs doing the double.
Spurs and Leicester City.
We have
those programs are there. Yeah.
Everton, Sheffield Wednesday from 66, and Preston North End, West Ham in 64. Liverpool Leeds, dare I say it, 65. We have those programs. But who left Draperstown to go to an FA Cup final? At those days, even just to get... It
was a major thing, wasn't it?
Those men that he took...
Who would he have took then?
John Thomas Kelly. They were mainly Desert Martin men.
Yeah.
Eamon McGuigan's uncles, the Wallses, Mrs. McGuigan's brother. And there was a man called Jimmy Curtis. Now, where did that trip begin at? Gormley's pub. Where did it end at? Gormley's pub, Brian Gormley. But the man who got them the tickets was Pat Murray, a Desert Martin man who had a pub in Carrickfergus, the Brown Cow. So he got the tickets.
It was a long day. It was a long day.
He went from Desert Martin to Carrickfergus to lift Pat Murray on to Windsor Park, back to Carrickfergus, back to Desert Martin. complete day.
Loved the soccer then. He loved the sport then.
That was
And he need to have loved the driving, because that was a long drive to in those days before.
There was no motorway.
There was no motorway in those days. Yeah. Oh no, he
Would
just
have been a bit like a Charlie Chaplin movie, you know, where you see the car, John, bopping up and down, and the black and white, you know, Harold Lloyd days.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But going back to that other car with the wedding car, that was always my job. Every day, if he had a driving a wedding and during the summer, it was my job to clean it, hoover it all out, but it had to be turtle waxed every day.
Wow.
Not just washed, but it had to be turtle waxed and glistening. It had to be done.
And
so
did your father inspect it then before it would go out? He trusted you?
No, he probably didn't inspect it, but he did. And being the older brother, he said, "No, you've got to do that again." Well, he was sitting on the
Pat,
school.
did you put Michael through the ropes?
He probably put me through the wall. He wouldn't put me through the- But I remember that the car had to be pristine. But he took pride. He took pride in that car.
Saturday was wash day.
I washed it.
All the cars and everything had to be washed on
brilliant.
Saturday. So.
And I should say to people out there, Michael, you are a man that is a master of quizzes. And I suppose you must have a good mind and a good memory for it all. But you've been running a quiz down in the market.
Yeah.
In Morris's on behalf of Draperstown Celtic, isn't that right?
That's
what year are you in now? Like, just for people out there.
Well, with COVID and that, I'm probably currently in 29. We should be over 30, but we started doing it. It was a fundraising thing for a nice crack, and it has just become a bit of a tradition. And but at the time, the quizzes, as they were all over, you know, through the credit union quiz going back, which was quite a serious one, which was good. But we always did fundraising ones for the football club, and they were just small little intimate things. But the Christmas one was always, you know, a daft thing, and it just became tradition to keep it going. So we do it every year, and I've asked the first two questions of round one are exactly the same every year. So for people who turn up and maybe haven't been before, they're visitors, I say, you know, round one, question 3, and people say, well, what happened in the first 2? And I say, should have been here before. and I just go straight into number 3, because if you know, you know.
You know, and and I'm just going to, that's brilliant, Michael, and I know for people out there, hopefully this will be out before. When is your date?
It is the 20th December. You know, get in early.
I'm getting nods to say, Paddy, John, I'm getting nods here, you know, to say, John, when you tell somebody your car will be ready, sort of thing. No, John, but I'm not making that as a no. They're laughing. No, I'm just saying, I've looked over at my team there, John, to say, will it be out in time or not? They're saying,
well,
so
I guarantee it will be on the 20th, and we'll be in half-8. And last year I just recovered from COVID, and I went down the day after getting clear of COVID, and I'll tell you what, I was lucky to get through that night, but this year will be slightly different.
Brilliant. And I'm just going to shift back to yourself, Jennifer. I wanted to bring up the Ballinascreen Historical Society, and I know, John, you're part of it too. But I know maybe you're a founder as well, John, in the early days. Yeah. So I'll put down then Jennifer and John as founders and maybe get a wee bit insight into it. I know I had Pat Lockery on chatting to me. You know Pat. And so I was looking back and thinking, in them days, you would all been in your maybe late 20s, early 30s, is that right? Or maybe you were younger?
It's been going for 43 years.
So Jennifer was 15. So as I say, I don't have to say that. So it's going 40 years, which brings it back to 1984. Is that right? Or 80? Or
80.
80. Mm-hmm. So 1980. So when you started it, I suppose like this podcast and you're all chatting, they're all stories of historical content and heritage. And so when you started, I suppose I would ask a question, why you started it and what were you kind of thinking at the time? Because being young at that time, you know, that's the time in life you have plenty of energy and we want to preserve this. We want to talk about this. We want people to see this picture and this. And so what was it like at the start to gather all that information, Jennifer or John, whatever?
I suppose people were conscious that, you know, a lot of local knowledge was being lost. And there was a few people, we met first of all down the old credit union, which was held in, which was Clinton's shop.
Yeah.
It was on High Street.
It was next to the Blackthorn pub there.
Next to Blackthorn pub.
Blackthorn, yeah.
And there was about 6 of us or 7 met, and those people are still on the committee.
That's brilliant. Do
After
you want to name who
43
they? Do you want to
years.
name who they
Mario
all?
Keeney was there that time, or
Angelo Keeney was
Angelo
there.
Keeney.
There's some members have
Passed on.
away. There was Angelo Keeney and Pat Lowry was there. I was there. John was there. Graham Mawhinney was there.
Pat Bradley, wasn't he there? The fellow up from
Paddy
Bradley, isn't it? No. He's actually, I would know him as one of the Dargans.
Oh yeah, Ollie and them. Was that the?
Older brother. I think he's dead now. He was there at the very start.
There we go. And so, see at the start, then what was the? You know, because I know that.
and Ross Murray was always there too.
There we are. So there's. We haven't left anybody out, have we?
Yeah, Paddy McGregor. That's
Paddy
the name I couldn't
McGregor is
remember.
right, and because so the people just know, I suppose. But back then, so your first, I know you've released a lot of books and a lot of things over the years. But what was the first release, and sort of how did that come about, and how did you gather the information? You know, because you were all young, and I suppose you
The
were about.
first release was a book called The Wee Black Tin, and it was two men, local men who had written poems, because every they always say that every townland in Ulster has a poet.
Yeah.
And the poets that we had was Johnny Kelly Paul from Doon
Yeah.
Yep.
and Geordie Barnett from
6 towns.
6 times.
Owenray.
Owen Ray.
And Graham collected the poems of Johnny Barnett, and I collected Johnny Kelly Paul ones. Now, Mrs. McKiernan, who was the teacher in the primary school, she was a sister of, a daughter of Johnny Paul's, and she gave me access to the poems. And again, they were all on scraps of paper and all, and I had to collate them, and that was the first publication. And Seamus Heaney wrote the foreword for that wee book, and it is now very collectible. We published, first of all, 500, and those 500 copies sold within about 3 weeks.
Wow.
And we had to do a reprint. And now, if you want a copy of it, it's maybe £100 on the internet.
Wow. So it's went up. And what was
Yeah.
the first? How much was it at the start? Yeah.
It probably was about £2.50.
£2.50. Wow, that's amazing. And I'm sure, does everybody here have that book, or you're nodding, Pat?
Oh yes, I have a few copies, but I would say it's worth more than £100. And apparently, Seamus Heaney had a copy and gave it to somebody, and he ended up without his copy.
There you go.
But my story was Peter McAlary's auction, who was a member of the society, and he had a lot of books. And I remember going down, I couldn't get to the auction, and there was boxes of his books, and I left bids with the auctioneer, and one of the boxes, there was a little wee black tin in it. But I just saw it there, so I left my bid and got it. But I didn't know it was signed by Seamus Heaney
There you
until
go.
I got it.
There you go.
So it was a bonus, that one.
There you are. And were they all signed? No, or just
Well, now, after Seamus Heaney came to the launch of the Wee Black Tin, and after the meeting was over, a lot of the committee retired down to Reagan's pub, and Seamus went down, and some people went and took their book, and Seamus would have signed the book. Now, Graham got one signed, but he also got a wee inscription from Seamus,
There
as
we
well
go.
as a signature.
There you go. So Pat, Graham's is worth maybe a few bob more. Michael, how much more do you think Patsy? How much do you think Patsy's worth?
I just
a
have the
few
book.
more bob.
I just have the book, but no inscription. in it.
Patsy's saying no, he got a photo with
I think
Seamus
it'd be
Heaney
hard to
and a
pay.
signed book.
It'd be hard to pay.
A book's signed by Seamus Heaney now, you put £200-300
Yeah.
onto the
Yeah.
price with no problem.
Yeah, and because of something for Seamus Heaney, the poet laureate, being so local, you know, being from where he was from and coming up, I think it probably showed a sign that he appreciated, you know, the
Well,
local
at that
poets.
time
you know
he
what I mean,
wasn't well
John?
known.
Aye, that's what I
His
mean.
brother, you see, was teaching
Dan.
Dan
Yeah, and was Dan?
in St. Columba or St. Column's
Yes.
High School at
Yes.
that stage.
Yeah, And so just when you speak about St. Columns, it's a perfect drop-in, John. We're going to go to a wee picture of St. Columns back in the day, and we'll go back in a wee minute about yourself, John, and your father. There's a picture that you left on. We'll get that in a wee minute. But just everybody there, and I suppose for people out there, and they're thinking, why does there random pictures and columns? Well, I want to tell people that Mrs. Kelly, Pat's, and Michael's mammy there beside Tom Maguire, and to the left of Mrs. Kelly is Peggy Maguire, and to the right, Father Collins.
And there's not Don Heaney behind.
There's Don Heaney immediately behind my
There,
mother.
what about that for a link, John? For all you people out there, the work that goes into this podcast is fierce. I'll tell you that.
But you make it just so random, you know. That's the thing,
Yeah,
you know.
and that's the way my mind does.
Excellent.
But so, and then you like the back
Colin Kelly and Clifford Barr.
Yeah, Clifford Barr.
Master Seamus.
Seamus, yeah.
Seamus Kelly.
And you've got Brian O'Kane's wife there, Miss O'Kane.
Eileen.
Eileen, yeah. And there's over there to the right is Brian McGuigan is right, it's Stella's daddy. And
Charlie Stewart.
Charlie
Charlie
Stewart.
Stewart.
And
Una Walsh. Una Kane.
That's right. And
Becky Throne.
Becky Trone's up there. I think that's Mrs. Murray from out in Desert Martin. Am I right there? I'm not sure. I think that's who that is. And Sister Joseph's in there.
Joseph.
So just anybody
There's
knew.
John-
And none
John-
just popped up there out of nowhere.
Mrs.
Just
Henry.
left it. Did you see that, Michael?
Pat Henry.
And
Mrs.
Mrs. Henry.
Henry.
That's Mrs. Henry, the art teacher. And
Patsy.
That's Patsy.
Hearn.
Patsy Hearn, yeah.
and
Johnny
Johnson.
Spillane.
Spillane.
and Miss Devlin, is that right?
I think, yeah, that's Margaret. Yeah.
And so for people out there, that would have been the photo, I think, in around the 1980s. Is that right?
I would have thought maybe
1987.
No, I think it's 70s.
Good man, Pat.
Because Michael Kelly died in 77, and I think Charlie became the caretaker in 76. So I'm putting that there at the beginning of the school year, 76.
76.
It's definitely Michael died in 77, so it's in around 76.
And that gentleman on the far left, there's Mrs. Clark too in the corner down below, and Susan as well, down the bottom. But that gentleman on the far left, was he the caretaker?
It was Michael Kelly, my namesake.
Kelly.
Yeah.
My namesake.
And was he related to yourselves?
No.
No, and was he from the town then?
He was a shoemaker in the town.
Shoemaker, he lived beside Johnny Mix.
There you
Johnny
are.
Mix.
Yeah.
And
He was the first caretaker.
Yeah.
There you go. And just on behalf of the school there, so I suppose for why that's up there is because your mother, and I say people learning how to make French toast, even though it was made in Draperstown. I know that sounds strange for people listening and watching in, but it is the way it's called. And the likes of the digestive roll biscuits, you know, and there's, I suppose in them days, there was things that you were taught to cook because you had to cook them, and it did, because I think like I cook still, and I don't know, I'm sure there's generations still cook, but them type of things in school, they did give you that sort of you know, to want to cook. I know it wasn't fancy like all now, and there's all the different things, but it gave you the staple. You know, your mum would have taught you the staple stuff, and we made the sponge buns, whether they were us or not. I'll leave that to the imagination. Some people in the class would throw a pile of the raisin salt on it, John, and it came out more like a wheaten round than it did like a scone. So,
But she did introduce that cookery for just the boys' class.
it was brilliant.
Which mightn't have been heard of before. But again, the stories you just mentioned there, going back to our Mother's Week, the number of men of a certain age who came to us and says, if it hadn't been for your mother, I would not have eaten, or something like that. And we made this and we made that, and you know, it's those sort of memories that they could remember all those.
I can remember it, and there was always I loved the class. And then I think you mentioned. Una O'Kane, she took over cooking after your mama, So we're just going back to a picture here for people looking in of a handsome young baby and a handsome man alongside him. So John, that's your good self. Do you want to explain that picture and what date that is?
That'll be about 1954, thereabouts. It's my father holding me in his arms, the other side of the road from our house, where the school's built now. That was a field of Alec Barclay's. The gate into it directly, I suppose, near enough directly opposite our hall door. And then that field was subsequently bought by a man, Paddy Bradley that owned a petrol filling station 2 doors up from us, and he, I think, donated it to the school. Father Collins was wanting to build a school at that stage, and Paddy bought the ground and donated it to the parish.
And as you said, that man, what was his second name? Paddy what?
Bradley.
And if there's still, is that the Bradleys from the town?
No, no. He had no family, and he had a brother, and he wasn't married, and no, there would be no relations of Paddy's about now at all.
So his only relatives, he had one sister that I knew of when he died. They were from Scotland, Glasgow. Paul Paddy's. I
know the feeling. Thanks, Pat. You dropped it on there. I know. I'm lost in this parish. But so I brought that up there too. So it's a brilliant picture to have, John, of yourself and your father. But yous were then all young, growing up. Then when the school kind of activated itself? Is that right?
Yeah.
What age were you all then? In context,
I would have been. What was school up in
61?
61. I would have been 6.
So 53. I was 8 when they opened it.
8.
Yeah.
But it was our playground.
That was our playground.
It was.
For 2 years they were building that school. It was a playground. All the kids
Kennedy's
that they were in.
Kennedy's a Korean built it.
Yeah.
there you go.
And Paddy took it upon himself as like a night watchman. And he used to arrive in and tried to, he shook the stick. And it was like a game of hide and seek,
Well, you run in through the foundations, and they were like trenches. So you head in through them on them. It was
great.
It was called fun in the days.
No,
pretty harmless.
But you know now, health and safety, you can't get near a site. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a story about health and safety, but that's a different story.
Well, you might as well tell the story. Why did I look over at you, Pat, there when Michael said that?
Because this story concerns Paddy Bradley. And right at the bottom of our garden, they were building the walls of a small little greenhouse. It was only this little wall was about 4 foot high. And the man who was building it was Benny Higgerty. And the man who was bringing the cement and the bricks to him was Paddy Bradley, Paddy John Joe's father. And as I say, at the end of the day, this little wall was built, lovely little orange bricks, I can remember it. And my father was in the back bedroom looking down at this here. And who came in and walked around to inspect this building of this part of this little wall was Paddy.
With a stick.
And his trench coat.
this brown suit.
He sounds like a special agent. This man.
Well, he was.
You know what I mean, John? He sounds like a sort of boy from
He was known as the Jicker, the Jicker on the Magherafelt Road. But he landed in anyway, and whatever way, he put his hands on the wall to look over, and the next thing it fell down. So my father had witnessed all this anyway. So the next morning, my father was down at the bottom of the garden and he was explaining this to Benny, what had happened. And they weren't, as I say, they weren't talking 10 minutes, but who arrived on site? Paddy. To basically explain, did you see what those children doing running in through these foundations? Look what they've done, they've knocked over the wall and all this here. But no. My father had seen what had happened, so that was Paddy. But he was a funny wee man. He kept very much to himself. But my father then rented a store out the back when he left these premises here. So we knew Paddy Bradley for, maybe 10, 12 years of his life, the last part of his life.
Well, see there, just going into St. Columba's then, because I know that you were at the top of the town, everyone, and I heard you said before, the Christmas lights didn't come up to this side of the town. You're very hurt about that. Did you go out in the streets, John, or what did you do? Or
well, in later years, the council would have provided a council light which was attached to the front of the garage, and we would have supplied the electricity for it at that stage. And I think, Patsy, you were the same.
That was Draperstown traders did that.
Right.
I was the treasurer. Of that.
Were you the treasurer of the Draperstown? We'll get that in a minute, Patsy. Yeah. And what is that? What at that time the Draperstown traders? Yeah.
And everybody put it up at the front of their business premise.
Yeah.
And they we all supplied the electricity for it.
That's brilliant.
When Christmas was over, they came and collected them, and that was the end of it. They never came back again.
Just when you were speaking there, Patsy, when the school, we were talking earlier on, you know, when you said in the old days your father would have done oil and coal, and that he used to be sent out the back on a cold night and to get that, it was tough. But did you find a difference as individuals when St. Columba's School was built, that it brought more people? Because, you know, into to your shop, for instance.
Completely different. Completely different.
And was it a good thing for you?
Yes.
Or were you aloof to anybody moving into the top of the town, if you know what I mean? Or
made Patsy a millionaire. Both schools made him a millionaire. He doesn't want to say that.
He told me he changed his name to Patsy Branson. I don't know what that means. You know.
Things were that bad. In the summer holidays, said we organised a collection for him because he wasn't making the money.
I like your style, Patsy. Well, not tell him about the houses you have out in the Caribbean.
And the yacht.
That's them teachers for you.
I know. All shareholders, Patsy. But at that time, I suppose, you know, the energy of where you lived, and there was more people coming about. Because you mentioned, John, earlier on too about where Bradley Park is, which is now an estate, and so you'd have Bradley Park come up, pop itself up. You had the kids come from school. But an interesting thing you said to me earlier on, Patsy, was a lot of your trade. Do you want to tell the people, a lot of your trade came from, you know, there was different areas. Do you want to say some of the places you got trade?
We weren't recognised at all. You'd have thought somebody drew a barbed wire across, maybe even John Johnston. We got further on down. We called it across the front row, from the barracks to the church. Mm-hmm. We weren't recognised. Any festivities went on, they were all at the bottom. The fair days, band parades, everything was at the bottom end of the town. And you'd have thought somebody
Well, they never come up and played a wee bit of...
never was heard tell of.
Why was that? Or what was happening there?
We don't know.
And did you ever inquire about it, or did anybody, you know, like your parents ever say, why
you just accepted it?
Just accepted it, and we were...
Yeah, and
people apart. We were people apart from that.
Do you know what? Like, that's weird, because you were a minority. You were a minority identity back then.
When you seen all the crowds down the town and going into the shops and stuff like that there, and you were standing twiddling your thumbs there, like.
And so the people, like when we were chatting there, and you're talking about people out in Kilcronahan and Desert Martin, and
Desert Martin, Dermard, Braca. Those were all.
They all come up.
Very faithful customers there, like.
There you go.
Their neighbours were great. Our neighbours were brilliant.
And what about, you know, the ones sitting beside you? Did they spend the cash up?
We'll not go into
Did that get you the first
in public there? Like.
But
we were great neighbours now. We were.
Like, I want to tell
John's mum used to come up not every Saturday night, most Saturday nights, and I would take down the box of goods. I used to love their garden, and she used to bring up some of the vegetables and stuff like that there. She was lovely. Lovely lady. You know.
And what the name days was all about. Did you do a bit of everything, Patsy? Because you mentioned about how you know, we talked about diversification downstairs when the guys were all talking. Me and you were talking diversification. You were saying about how you brought the newspapers in and different things.
Well, then things changed a lot. Well, it was changing anyway. For the bigger shops were all. The supermarkets were all coming in. Yeah,
but you had a couple of wee burst moments. Like, you talked about the wee holy moment when there was, you know, like the holy cards.
We had a good wee run on a religious good.
You done Michael, do you not know this?
The little wooden nativity that we still have in the hall was bought in the Patsy shop.
There you go, that's brilliant. And you know, you had Padre Pio front and centre. Tell that wee story. People thought it was your father, didn't they? No, you're looking at me as if I made this up. Patsy,
no, you're spot on.
Patsy, you want to tell that wee story?
Just created an image there when you said that.
Padre Pio were very popular, and still is very popular now. Still a very popular man.
One of his best sellers.
But I would have had a nice big picture of him in the front window. And I remember Ronan, I think it was, coming in, and he said to me, Those friends of mine think you must think a lot of yourself. You have photographs sitting on that one day up on a big statue there, like it.
And but then the big supermarket shop came in, which was Paddy Hearns and that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
did they get all the religious thing in?
You know, everything starting to slow down a wee bit there.
But and I'm sure, like anything, and I mean, just looking up at your own shop, and Pat, you mentioned, just for people out there to know, the Devlin's shop as well. And so what was the crack with the Devlin's shop? Whoever wants to speak about what did they? Because I remember it when I was at school, Patsy, but it sort of closed, Michael and Pat, and you know,
they
John,
did a lot of fancy goods, didn't they?
Yeah,
they did a lot of fancy.
They did
But
groceries.
Eddie did a big run out in the country.
He did.
And they had a greenhouse out behind where Eddie would have grew his own tomatoes and lettuces and sold them through the shop, and onions and things like that. And they had a van out in the country. Him and Teresa would have went out round. But there were quite a number of vans from the town.
Oh, there was Macaulay's. It was another. They had.
It was Willie Clinton.
Wally Clinton.
Willie Clinton. That's right. That's
Paddy Rogers had a...
Paddy.
Well, he had a bread van.
he had a bread agency.
And Jimmy as well. Yeah.
Well, Michael Reagan had a meat van, did he not quite as well?
He did.
Dennis McNamee.
So they all had
Dennis
that.
McNamee and later
Michael
years Jim
McNamee,
Hagan.
aye.
when did all that start? You know, the deliveries like that. You know, for people out here listening, you know,
McNamee's delivered meat over to Cranach very early on in their career.
Mm-hmm.
What did he call the man that drove the meat van?
Dennis.
McNamee.
Did Dennis not be out too? Dennis
he lived
McNamee?
across there beside Mary Pat's.
That was Michael.
McNamee?
Michael McNamee.
Big man.
Aye.
Yeah. That was Johnny's brother.
what date was that? What date was that, Pat?
Well, that had to be after the war, I would imagine. All those vans.
Johnny had the shop. Johnny lived opposite us, just and Johnny had the shop in the butcher shop in High Street there.
There you are. And there's another man you mentioned earlier on there. Just I think there you are, Patsy. Just popped up on the right hand side of me.
Yes.
There's for people out there. Patsy's Empire. Is that like a yellowy colour? I don't want to say the wrong colour. It looks like a burgundy.
Your gable end.
The gable end.
Cream.
And so that's where Patsy had a shop. And you can see, yet again, I've got an expert in cars beside me. John, what are we talking here, John? What kind of date and time of cars?
I would have thought late 60s. There's a Volkswagen van there belonging to one of the McBride boys.
I would correct you in that.
Aye. Go ahead.
Because her mother's car's sitting there.
Yeah.
Right.
And she went...
That probably must be
That's
the
80s.
80s, early 80s, that I would have
And the
thought.
house that we were born in, you can see the new windows in it. So
Beside that camper van.
beside
yes.
that camper van.
Yes.
So therefore that had to be 80s.
That photograph
That
in
was
early
in the middle
80s.
80s.
Well, I know the van would have been in that era.
Oh, the van would be
earlier.
there. But, yeah.
I just,
I'll tell you what, one of them's worth a fair bit of money now.
Yeah.
there you are. And so, I wanted to show an our picture of Paddy Rogers, if we can get her up, guys. So, you talked about Paddy earlier on, and it's just that, you know, you were saying that you were sort of, there was no, you know, the bottom end of the town up, but you seem to have a lot of, you know, like Paddy Rogers, Devlin's, and Patsy. There was a lot of wee shops.
Well, they were the ultimate convenience stories. Like, I mean,
Devlin's was a shop, wasn't Laycock's?
It was Harry
right.
Laycock's.
That's
Right. There was a shop
Prior to
there
that.
even before Devlin's. So,
And the other half of the house, Cassie McGuigan, had a boarding house originally in it.
okay, right.
That was two houses at that stage.
And that side here, John, aye?
No, on up
On
Devlin's,
up.
further up above our garage there.
Yeah. And so Paddy Rogers, because there's some of Paddy's family still living there to this day. When did Paddy
That
come?
That there
house
was-
it was Dr. Mary's, the first house. The second one was Parkinson's, and then Paddy
right.
Rogers.
Ah, there you
Then
go.
they changed houses over.
that's right.
Yeah.
The first one was the old surgery.
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah,
post
surgery.
office.
That was supposed to, or the
And
chemist
so-
chemist shop.
Chemist shop.
Chemist.
And the
Chemist shop, and the
Parkinson's.
post office.
That was Parkinson's.
Parkinson's, yeah.
Parkinson's, yeah.
So you
Chemist
mentioned
in the post office.
you mentioned Dr. Mary there. So when did Dr. Mary then come about? Because I know she lived out beyond, you know, the one in Union Road, not right?
Yep.
So was Dr. Mary from here?
Oh, aye, she
So,
was-
originally?
her father was a doctor in the town.
The mother lived there at that house for a long time.
Yeah,
Used to
before
sit
the
in
mother
front
lived
window
there.
there and watch
It
people
was
going up.
Dr. Hugh Donnelly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her father was Dr. Hugh Donnelly.
Oh, there you go. And then what about Dr. Frank?
Dr. Frank was a brother,
A
a younger
brother
brother,
of
than
Dr.
Dr.
Mays.
There you go.
Mays.
So they were pretty smart people, and for their day, all being doctors. And so in them days, for you mentioned the doctor's surgery, I'm sure it was less complicated than now to get an appointment.
Well, you could get in.
You could get in.
Yeah.
Not being critical or anything like that there,
Aye.
but yeah.
It's like you just went.
You went and
Yeah.
sat.
You
But
sat,
you sat.
and there was these big black sofas on it.
That's
Yes.
correct, yes.
That I remember.
In a very dark waiting
And a
room.
very dark written room, yeah.
Was that to make you just run out again, John? It's not,
And you walked
it's
in
not
this-
the best colour to see when you're going on, I'm not too well, doctor. That's,
You walked down the hall and there was glass. There was
Yes.
glass. And you could
Partition.
look in and see was there many sitting waiting.
There
And
you
you just
go.
sat.
And so what about them days, you know, because you guys growing up, because it comes up in the podcast sometimes about, you know, and them days you went out in the fresh air, John, a lot, you know, when people went out in the fresh air and got fresh air. Did that mean that less people were actually attending the doctors in a sense, or was it something you would have went to, you know, like now it's just like, oh, I've got such and such, go to the doctors or go to the chemist. Was there as many sort of tablets handed out, is
there
what I mean?
wouldn't there was nearly a fear of having to go to the doctors in those days.
Yeah.
There was a hangover from, I know my father said that in his youth, if you fell and broke your leg, old Dr. Donnelly would have went out to the backyard and broke up a box and came in and put 2 splints in your leg and a bandage, and that was how your leg was repaired.
But
or
I
if
would-
you needed your tooth out, put you down on the floor and put your head between his 2 knees and reached in, pulled the tooth.
But I would imagine at that time, it's still a time, you know, the old cures.
Yes.
So-and-so had a cure, and you did this and that and the other, which still exists to a
Yes.
certain extent if you want to go into that. But I would imagine that
Yeah.
happened
And
as well.
what, can you remember any? You know, because I know people come on here and they talk like there's different ones come on and talk different cures you would use for different things.
Yeah.
And because even now people talk about go to such and such, they've got the cure for spraying, or go to such and such, they have the cure for whatever heartburn or whatever before Gaviscon arrived. And so what kind of cures do you think, Michael, or I know John, you maybe want to mention something too?
Well,
there.
Father Houghton, he had cure for warts, seemingly, and quite a few people would have went to him now for a cure.
And
One of
McDonald had
the-
a cure for nosebleed.
And Dan no, for a burn.
Who was that?
Dan McDonald.
Dan had the burn.
Uh-huh. And I think one of the Lynn boys has a cure for burns too.
Is that right?
Yeah. He actually gives you 20p or something like that to buy the burn off you. And,
All right.
I think that's how that one
There was
works.
another. I don't know who had it now. There's a cure for ringworm. They burned a bit of a special
Road.
oak
Uh-huh.
bush or something like that there, and they traced it round the part that was affected.
Or there was a man Cleary up in Boley, up in the 6 towns. He had a cure for spraying.
Yeah.
If you had a sprained ankle, and I think Mrs. Clerkin, Mrs. Clerkin over in Moykieran, she had a cure for a sprain as well.
Fairly.
One of my first memories of Father Houghton, he had called into our house to see my father about something, and I had served mass 2 or 3 times, but I didn't really know him. But my father had given him a glass, and I was sitting over looking at this glass because it was a strange looking mixture. It looked like cold tea. And he says to me, I see you're looking at this glass of stuff that your father has given me. I says, aye, it's a strange looking mix. Well, he says, there's a wee drop of whiskey in it, and that's for me. And there's a wee drop of milk in it, and that's for my ulcer. So that was his cure. That was his cure for his ulcer.
That's a brilliant.
Aye,
And,
I remember that.
That's class. And, but just, I wanted to bring a picture up, if I could. It's back to the Historical Society again, when you were all young, back in the day. So it's a bit for me, and maybe it's a bit far from everybody, but I know I was looking around at Jennifer, and I kind of got a few people, and I think, John, you're up in the right-hand side.
Yep.
Now, I didn't know who was what, so I went through. I don't know who the man is with an amazing moustache.
That was John Steele, who was the principal of Magherafelt High School.
Well, that is it not the greatest moustache you've ever seen? Well, Patsy, I know you've always had a great beard, Patsy. But look at the moustache in that man there.
Looks like he looks like the Australian player John Newcombe. When you look at that from the old Wimbledon days, looks like John.
It's brilliant. And is that Michael Trone, just 22? No, is that?
No.
Yeah, you're maybe not sure. And
there's Pat Lockley, 21.
And Graham's 34, and Ansley Malley's 22, and I'm 32.
There you are. You're young there. And there, that's good. And who else can you reckon? Is that Paddy McEldowney? No, down the front there, no? John? No, from Dermard? No, he's not number 10.
No.
And can you remember who they are? I know number 9 is Niall McGuigan from Draperstown, you know, Niall. And I'm trying to think, is there anybody else on it that we would know? I don't hear anybody shouting out in the production there. You just know who they are. Give us a shout.
So there's Raymond Brady, number 4.
Raymond Brady's number 4.
The trainer girls behind up above there, 16, 15, you know, Olivine and Patricia.
There you go. Olivine, the hairdresser.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, hairdresser. Down below there we have Emma Hearn, Cormac Hearn.
Emma and Cormac Hearn, John Hearn's sons.
Joe McEldowney up in that corner, is it?
Top left corner.
Aye, that's
Up at the back.
up at the back.
26,
That's John
38, whatever
Hearn.
it is, yeah. 26.
And I was up at Ballybreast, wasn't it?
The Stone
Chambered.
Circle.
Or up at Stone.
Chambered Cairn.
Chambers
Cairn,
Cairn.
aye. And so was that like a trip out, John, for the historical side, or was that to get people involved in what you were doing, or?
Well, normally once a year we'd have a trip out, but at that stage it was more local.
Mm-hmm.
Later years we would take a bus and go to various venues. Ulster Folk Transport Museum. We went to
Newgrange.
Newgrange.
Newgrange,
We went
amazing.
somewhere every
Yeah.
year. Somewhere different.
Somewhere different every year.
Yeah, and I suppose going to Newgrange and Ballybreast Stone Circle showing you that there's a lot of them old, John, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Old cairns and all about the place. And so I wanted to, I suppose, when we were last chatting, you mentioned a very exciting day when a helicopter landed in the pitch, was it up behind you?
Where it landed, actually, were the tennis courts, right?
Yes.
And from my memory, it was to collect a policeman, a Sergeant Hunt. Now, where he was going to, I don't know, but I was just thinking it was the late 50s, and there was the border troubles, and this was maybe a way of transporting them out of Draperstown. But this massive big Wessex helicopter, and our house shook.
Yeah.
And it was only there for 2-3 minutes and away again.
And did you all see it that time?
Yeah.
Yeah. And was it something like, you're bound to be thinking, what the heck's going on here? That's, you know, I mean...
Like when windows were starting to rattle, like this thing was...
yeah.
Like it was just literally over the fence from...
Yeah, and because I know Ian's mentioned there was like 3 different police sergeants, is that right, John, over the years?
3 different police stations.
Can you want to tell the people out there?
On the Magherafelt Road.
Is that why nobody came up to you and said...
Well,
No, I'm not saying... Patsy.
well, you didn't want to attract the wrong crowd.
Ian's under secret protection up there, you know what I mean? That nobody else had. So just anybody at all, John, you maybe give us a wee insight for the people listening where they were back in them days, and maybe a timeline too, if you could.
Dan McDonald's was one of the police stations,
Rooney's.
which we would know as Rooney's.
Yeah.
In later years, it was McDonald's house.
Yeah, that's where my mother's shop was. In 19.
For the one that was slightly
30s
different.
or 34s or something like
There
that.
you go.
Only he had that a few years ago myself.
There you are. Did you not know that, Patsy?
No, I didn't.
There you are. And but back then, you're talking, you know, in between one World War to the second there. And
I think my mother had been in America for a couple of years. And then she came back there and she started the shop.
Brilliant.
And then about 1934, 35.
Brilliant. And so the police barracks had moved around.
The police barracks then moved down to what later became Paddy Bradley's, which is where Murray's, Anna Murray lives now, and the house next door.
Yeah.
It was all the one house at that stage.
Right opposite the gates of the school, basically.
Yes.
And it was there in the early
20s.
And then Paddy took it over as a filling station and bicycle repair shop. And
There was bars on the back windows. There was
bars.
a holding
That's
cell
right.
at the back.
And there was a 22.
And it had been
it was shot.
attacked in
It was attacked.
1922 by the IRA. The A specials were in it, and it was attacked, and the bullet holes were in the front of the building.
No way.
You could have
They
saw
pulled
it.
up in a lorry on the far side of the road over, started to shoot over at the barracks, but the specials were on it that night and they returned fire, and seemingly there was a bit of argy-bargy. I don't think anybody was hurt, but
Was that just, would that have been something usual in them days happening? You know?
well, my father seemingly came in that night and it was going on, and he turned and went into his bed and went to sleep. The gable end of Devlin's house was, there were quite a few bullet holes in the end of the house at that stage. But going back to Bradley's, when you went in through the front door, the bicycle shop was off to the right-hand side, and there was a wooden floor on it, and the wood was that badly worn. The nuts in the wood were sitting up about half an inch. You could have tripped over and there was all the oil at that time came in glass bottles, and there were all these glass bottles sitting up on shelves around the place. And there was a massive big poster up as you went in.
Yeah. Put a tagger in your tank.
Put a tagger in your tank.
Massive big post.
But the one I remember, Paddy would have sold radios too at one stage. And he sold a radio to somebody over Crannig direction. And they returned the radio after a week or two saying it wasn't working. Now, there had been a bad fog for a night or two, and there was a lot of crackling going on the radio. So some of the locals thought they would repair it to take this crackling out of it. And when Paddy took the back of it, this quantity of oil started to run out of the back of it, and they reckoned something was sticking on it and the oil to the radio.
That would do it. That would do it.
So,
Paddy,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was
Pat.
going to say, Paddy had a very quick, shall we say, burial on Sunday morning at Straw Church. Has already been mentioned, Paddy was involved in the buying of that field for the school, and
Yes.
rumour had it that he donated it to the parish. And Father Collins every Saturday afternoon got his petrol there, so there was a very bond between Paddy and the parish and Father Collins. But Paddy died down in Dr. Harkin's, and he died on a Friday, and his coffin was left in the church on the Saturday afternoon.
And with the Holy Rosary wasn't built
No,
then?
this was in Straw.
Straw.
This was 1973,
Yeah.
April 1973.
There.
And his funeral mass was on the Sunday morning, 11 o'clock. It was written in stone, couldn't be changed. But unfortunately for Father Collins, Derry were playing at Croke Park in Dublin in the final of the National League, throw-in at 3:30. Now, he had to appear at Paddy Bradley's funeral. There was no way that he couldn't. And I remember after Paddy was been buried quite close to the church, I looked at the watch. Wasn't even 25 past 11. All over in a flash. And the car, Father Collins's red Cambridge car, his chauffeur, Paddy Murphy, had the car ticking over during the burial, which was no more than about 10 yards.
Was that Paddy Murphy, the painting and decorating?
Correct.
Man, yeah.
And Father Michael Downey was actually doing the burial, and he hadn't time even to go into the sacristy. He took off the surplice, threw it into the back seat, and went in. And that was it. Away they were at 11:25, out was Throw Church, away they went. So nobody knew whether they actually got there in time or not until the next morning. And I remember my mother had a copy of the Irish Independent. And on the front of the Irish Independent, there was quite a large photograph. And all it said was, well-known South Derry Gael, enjoying his ice cream during the anthem at the game yesterday in Croke Park. So had Paddy the last smile? I don't know. But that was...
And so, in them days, we were, I suppose, the radio, would have been a thing. From chatting to you, there was one... lady that had a TV.
Lady in the row, virtually a TV.
So, do you want to I suppose everybody can tell a wee story about this lady, because I know you all have wee memories of her back in the day. And I don't know, Patsy, if you got down into the TV.
Who was that?
Mrs. Phillips.
Mrs. Phillips,
She had television.
And so, I suppose, let's put it in the context. This is back in the early
60s.
Early 50s, yeah.
Late 50s. And
1960.
So I suppose in them days you'd be talking the old black and white films, yeah. And, you weren't talking Sky then or any
You
of
weren't
them
talking
things.
Sky then. You were talking to screen.
The only Sky on TV then was watching it and looking outside. That was about it. And so tell me about that time, growing up and going to the lady's house, and what was it like, and how did she come about to have a TV when nobody else had?
I don't know.
Well,
she had a son who
Archie.
was Archie Phillips, and he had a car dealership.
Of course, yeah.
And I think he had bought his mother the TV, and it was a small, I think about a 12-inch. Was it not a Ferguson?
Maybe.
It was a Ferguson TV, and it was about a 12-inch screen.
If that.
And all the children in Magherafelt Road would have been huddled around this on a Saturday evening for the Lone Ranger and Crackerjack.
On Friday, no, the Lone Ranger on a Saturday, Crackerjack on a Friday. Yeah, it was 5 to 5 on a Friday. It was always that sacrosanct to think that the Crackerjack would be on a Saturday. But yeah, but I mean that for someone like what age would I been there? 5 or 6. You talk about a highlight.
You're blown away. You're barely blown away.
And there wasn't a sound. There wasn't a sound. Like Mrs. Phillips never had to say quiet or anything like that there.
Oh, you sat on the floor.
You sat on the floor.
You sat on the floor. Yeah, you didn't get on a seat.
Did she not let you on a seat? No.
And you brought your threepenny bit with you.
And she had national drive.
Did she charge you, John?
Oh, yes.
Did you be charged? Or?
I don't remember that.
Oh, Patsy, here out there.
I don't remember.
They were charged.
I remember taking our biscuits at Christmas time, but I never remember.
Yeah.
I used to wonder, Pat, with the biscuits. But I'm sure John bought tray bakes and sandwiches and all. And I know rightly John makes a good sandwich, and so does Jennifer.
Maybe with John Beatty's thruppers, he got the better seats. He got the better view. He could
you were sitting in the late.
He could sit in front and say, John, move your head, would you?
The floor was free.
And would there been, I suppose, like you maybe didn't know, but for your street, that's a massive thing. You said all the children from the area. Was there other people, that...
Bobby Taylor's children were there. They would have been there.
Henry Devlin.
And
McElhones, but the McElhones came over.
I don't remember the McElhones.
Bernard Wilson would have been there.
Victor Rogers.
Some of the Rogers,
All right.
And some of the Lagans.
Yeah, the Lagans,
Lagans down the Burns...
No. Frank Lagan,
Lagan.
had a car dealership and up the back or up behind Paddy Bradley's type of thing. He had a garage there, and then it was
a brother of
that went in fire.
A brother of John Joe Lagan's, Gary's father.
There you go. And so, garage men in them days, car dealers. Sorry, was Frank Tim a car dealer?
Yeah, he was the lower end of the town. Frank Lagan would have been bigger than Frank Timney nearly at that stage.
Well,
He'd been the first, really.
Yeah.
You guys are the first for a lot of things.
There was a line
The
up
wheel.
there.
John brought on the wheel. John's got on the wheel. Right, hold on a minute. And then you said the best car dealers. You sat halfway through this podcast and says, "Oh, we got nothing up there. We got nothing." You just got good business. So and Frank Tammany, was he an undertaker too at the time, or
His father,
or certainly his grandfather was.
yeah?
and Matt would have been in his
Yeah,
earlier
yeah,
days.
yeah.
Or Matt, and I was Matt then was the car dealer. Is that right?
Matt would have dealt in cars over in Strand Road in Derry.
That's right. Yeah.
And I suppose like in them days too, you're talking about things people not having much and different things. Did certain stuff come into the area that came in a certain way? Like butter and sugar and
And all things nice.
and all things good, like the chewy tobacco you talked about earlier on, Patsy. That stuff you cut up.
Chewy tobacco.
And a lot of people don't.
No, it was all Turkish cigarettes, I think, were coming in.
There you go.
They were the main
Yeah. And,
input on our side, but my father never touched any of that. He had a policeman not far across the road from him.
so you're saying your father, for the record here, for people out here listening to this in the future, Patsy's father was clean. There was no dodgy butter.
Near enough.
I don't know why I said that then. But so what kind of things in them days, I suppose, because people need to get into context here. You've talked a lot of great stuff about, in between the First World War, and even the Second World War, where your father started, and yours, John. So there wouldn't have been much. Was that ration book time, Jennifer,
you
and
had
stuff?
coupons and ration books and stuff like that there.
And did you share it with your neighbours, or is that a silly thing? Or
You see, people were fly. They went to these places where they could get extra. Butter or sugar or something like that because it was being brought in.
Oh, I get you.
And they would have left their books down there. They'd have got an extra £6 of sugar or something like that there.
And how long had that to do you for?
I remember one incident, and we must have been about 14 years of age, and a next door neighbour of ours had books with Joe McBride.
Mm-hmm.
So they needed sugar, so they went down to Joe's, and Joe gave them £6 of sugar, which was a good subscription at that particular time. And Morris and myself came up the road, and we were running and jumping and carrying on, and we came to Burns' old factory shop there, and there was a wee wall there. So Morris decided that he would jump this wee wall, which he didn't get over the wall. He collapsed on top of the wall with a bag of sugar.
Oh, jeez.
Burst into smithereens, and they had the whole sugar.
And you just, when you talked about the ration, did people have to pay then, Jennifer? Or was that something you were given, or did you have to pay, or what?
You would.
You paid, but
you'd
you're
only
only
get too
allowed a
glad to
certain
pay if you had
amount.
been able to get it.
And
You only got 4 ounces of this and
2 ounces of
something
bacon,
else,
or-
and 4 ounces of butter.
And I know obviously you wouldn't know any of the smugglers, for the people out there listening that you thought were smugglers in them days. But you mentioned Joe McBride. I know he's not a smuggler. He was a trader.
No, Joe was
and he was at the bottom of the town.
Yeah.
But who was bringing the stuff in to people?
Well, seemingly there was a local undertaker and his mother, and he would go across the border with an empty coffin and come back across, and the customs people never challenged when they saw the old lady sitting on the front of the hearse and the coffin in the back. But the coffin seemingly contained something other than a corpse.
And was there a corpse on it?
No.
No, I was going to say
At this point, can we throw in a disclaimer here? That this was,
I was just expecting somebody to pop up and go, £2 a butter, Patsy. Like, the American ads, just come on in. So, you know what I mean?
You've been watching that film Ocean's 11.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so I suppose, like, we're not saying it was Pat's father, and people out there from this area probably knows who else the undertakers were. But did you any kind of experiences, like stories that you could tell, that maybe, like you spoke about a story about your father going away to Donegal, and how did that come about? It was
that was a story in relation to John.
John,
yeah.
sorry, John. I didn't know your dad was an undertaker as
He
well.
wasn't,
he wasn't.
There you go, a man of many mysteries. So how did that all go, John?
There was a local from this part of the world seemingly died in Donegal, and there were only horse-drawn hearses in this part of the world at that stage, and he was working in PJ Carlton's in the garage at that stage, and the local undertaker came to them and asked them could they take a car and go to Donegal. So they headed off in a Model T Ford, which wouldn't have been the biggest of a car, and it was February, March time, very cold. Got over, and the only way they could accommodate the corpse was prop it up in the back seat. The way back in Feeney, they were very cold. They went into a pub,
Jesus.
and the undertaker said to the barman, he says, "I need 3 hot whiskies," and the barman produced the 3 hot whiskies. He says, "You wouldn't take that out to the lullaby in the car." And the barman put the hot whiskey in a tray and out and opened the door. Handed in the hot whiskey, but it didn't revive. The spirit was gone.
I'm sure your father had been well shocked if it hadn't had one. But so, and I'm thinking, I suppose, just going down to the corner of the seat, you mentioned there now where the dentist is, Pauline Tillers, you mentioned a man earlier on there about, and what was the connection with that corner, you know, just in where, was it Eric, I can't go on Eric Ways, Barclay. Sorry.
Alec Barclay.
Alec
Barclay.
Alec sort of Barclay, sorry. So,
Alec Barclay lived where the butcher shop is now.
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Now, and Alec was the goalkeeper of the famous 1930 Draperstown Football Club. Won many cups. That was their golden era.
Wow.
So he would have played along with Matt Reagan, Michael Reagan, Father Paddy Reagan, Michael Kelly, the caretaker, John Joe Donnelly,
Dennis
McNamee, Matt Taylor, Matt's younger
Marcus.
brother, Marcus Taylor, Charlie Phillips's uncle from the Six Towns, Tam. Now, that was a famous team in the 1930s.
Wow. And did they just go under the name Draperstown soccer team?
They were just Draperstown.
Draperstown.
Yeah.
Draperstown.
The first played in, like, you were going back long time ago, but there are pictures dating back very early 1900s. There are
Wow.
newspaper reports from the 1880s, 1890s, but they played Draperstown, and they were, and originally I think they were black and white. Was it black and white?
Green and white stripes. There was always green in it. Green and white. And then Alec, he also was the club secretary. So there was one occasion where Draperstown found themselves in court, and it was all from a game that was abandoned in Magherafelt, and the 2 teams were summoned to Coke Courthouse. Now, it wasn't anything legal, but that just happened. They were playing in the Coke League,
Yes.
and that's where this league met. Yes. So the problem was the replay, where this replay was going to be, and who was going to referee it. So the 2 teams, the Magherafelt team and Draperstown, their secretaries were called, you see. This was the dispute about referee and fees and whatnot. So the 2 teams agreed that they would only pay the local fee. And if the league wanted to bring in a referee from Belfast, no problem. But they were going to have to pay the extra, the travelling expenses. So the game, to cut a long story short, the game was to be played in Cookstown. Magherafelt didn't turn up.
Were they scared of the Draperstown team?
Must have been because Draperstown had a reputation, and it wasn't actually
Skillful, dirty or clean. What's one? What's one job?
Some things never change in
Michael,
history.
you're a man of many words. How would you describe them? Yeah.
They were formidable.
They were. They didn't take prisoners.
That just covers
and
everything.
They had a legion of female supporters.
Oh, they were a good-looking team.
Well, they had a legion of female supporters.
They were a good-looking
who
team.
carried umbrellas, whether it was raining or not. So you can put, You know,
Was that to go into the trees for a court?
No, I don't think so. I think it was like
more pointed.
It was, yes. They were known to remove an odd winger. A flying winger could be flying up, and the umbrella could go out, and they could trip.
I get you. They were there for
a purpose, correct?
Yes. Well, was that set up by the Draperstown
Well,
team?
it was part of. I tell you, they were a team in demand because there were certainly Cookstown, Magherafelt always wanted to play friendlies with Draperstown. And so whether it was to do with their female
fans,
I'll leave that
and did
one up to
any of the
yourself.
female fans, I know it was a long time ago, maybe marry into the team?
That I don't know. I don't know.
We could do a census again, Pat, and find out who courted who and who married who, John. There's bound to be one of them, John, on there too. Among them.
Well, I know 3 who didn't marry. Molly, Bud and Effie.
That's your aunt's.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think was in the team. And,
Yeah, John McGuigan.
and
He was the captain. John McGuigan was the captain.
Wow.
Yeah.
And,
But Pat was saying how popular they were a draw because Pat found records in I think the Constitution down in Coleraine was of games. They used to had various pitches around here. I know we're getting away from the Magherafelt thing, but they had a pitch up the Tunnel Road. Just in where they're starting to build now up there behind the Hib Hall.
Yes.
And there's a report of a game where it was, I think the total gate money was something like £163, and it was 6pence each in.
wow.
Now, that was a lot. That was a lot of people.
Hundreds of people went to some of these games.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
Wow.
Big games. There'd be a football train special left Draperstown
Wow.
to go down to Magherafelt or Cookstown. So.
And the train infrastructure then, I know it's it closed down now, but can you remember, John and Jan, can you remember the train
I can
infrastructure?
remember the track, but I can never remember the train.
Well, I remember one day John and Pat and I as kids walked the old track line for as far as we could find it.
Yeah.
But it was you could find the old embankment and where it was raised up and get across like that there. So I remember that was one of our summer day outings.
The Adventures. Was that the Adventures?
It was an Easter Monday night.
I can't remember.
And we walked down as far as Johnny Bradley's.
I remember how far, but it seemed to be miles from me.
Yeah, brilliant.
The train played a big part again back in the 30s with the football teams because
there you go.
Magherafelt they would have gone on the train. There was football specials. Draperstown would have togged out on the train, and then when they got off the station, there was a procession. They walked team first to the pitch in their gear, followed by their supporters.
The umbrella gang.
And the umbrella gang, yes. So Magherafelt, Cookstown, Kilray, these were all venues. Upperlands, a lot of cup finals were playing at Churchill Park, Upperland. They were all served by railway. And you go back to the 30s, that's how you took 200 or 300
That's how
people.
all the pitches were
linked. That's how you got
back.
2 or 3,
That's
you
amazing.
got 200 or 300 people to a game.
That's amazing.
There was football specials, believe it or believe it not.
Brilliant. And I'm just thinking about trains and stuff, and we have a wee picture, Patsy, of yourself where Mars Tiller's yard was where you worked for a while.
Yeah, down there. That's,
and
McWilliams's.
Yeah, and so I suppose you were young then.
Kieran McWilliams' grandfather.
That's right.
Was
and so the railway house is still there. So this is Patsy, a fine looking man there. I know you're all looking where Patsy is, and I know all you know where he is. And a fine dressed man. It was a big day out at Barmore show,
right,
John, back in the day. A show, I suppose. Even now it's big, but probably then it was maybe even bigger, you know what I mean, for everybody to go. So, Patsy, I know it's a bit away. Can you name some of the people on it for people out there listening?
I need to be up a bit closer. But
go on
Barney Rogers and Jack O'Hagan and Paddy Henry is the man at the very back, and Laurie O'Kane, Bill Kearney, Bill Early, and then in the front there, Brenton McGuigan.
Jojo.
Is that Jojo, is it?
Think so.
Yeah.
And there's the good-looking one is The
cheeky chappie. The cheeky
I don't
chappie.
know what they call him, but he sticks out there a wee bit.
He does. Look at the wee cheeky grin on him. He's a fine-looking man.
And Charlie Murray.
Actually, I thought that was Charlie Murray.
Charlie was killed just at the corner there.
Is that Charlie Murray there?
Yeah. That's Barney's brother, aye.
Charlie was married to my Aunt Angela, who's dead now, God rest her. And that's right.
And Frank there. There's Frank, isn't it?
What?
That's Frank.
Frank Murray.
That's Frank's Charlie and Barney's.
Charlie's father.
Oh, yeah.
What is that? Where's that?
Man with the cap.
Man with the cap.
And
Every morning,
I
5
think
to
that's
8,
well early at the back, isn't it?
that man walked down past our house and you would have heard the click of the boots.
had you the wee
The
clippity
clicks
things
of the
on?
boots going down to the yard. 5 to 8.
What was the crack in them days of putting the clicks on? Was it just for grip, was it, or what? Or
For provide against wear and tear for one thing. It saved the heel.
yeah,
You
And I suppose back in then was it maybe you'll even go even further before that. Was it Felix Mullen then that done the shoes, or who done the shoe?
Michael Kelly.
Michael Kelly.
Michael Kelly.
Cover, yeah. But
Yeah.
And Alec Bradley. Another cobbler.
Yeah.
Alec
Those
Bradley.
cobblers were just across from us. O'Kane, two men, O'Kane brothers. They were cobblers there just next door to us on the other side of the fence.
That's good. That's good. And
They were there for a good few years, and then one of them moved down to a shop beside Dennis Kelly's pub. They would have been some connection of what do you call the man that you were talking about there? O'Kane.
Pat O'Kane.
No, not
no.
Pat O'Kane. He was Pat O'Kane, I think. And lived up in Mullen Village.
Martin O'Kane.
Martin. He'd be an uncle of Martin O'Kane.
Right.
yeah, and so just so people, I suppose, back in the day there, where now we're just saying about where Pauline Taylor's dentist is. We should do an ad break. Pauline Taylor's dentist. Should have practiced that, but I just brought it up because back in the day, things like dentist and banking, where did that, I know did they just use the house or a pub? I know there's maybe Mary Pat Kane, she's mentioned about dentists coming in, John, and the bankers.
The dentist was over in
Roseanne.
Gallagher's.
Where was that at then? From
Tommy McCauley's next door to Tommy, where
Office.
yeah.
opposite the Church of Ireland, there in the square. There was a dentist came there once a week or so.
Once a month.
Once a month, was it?
Milligan.
And there was a bank would have came to Mary Pat's front room.
And a pub, like, it sounds like a Wild West, Joe. It's like, all right, let's just, what are we going to do today, Michael? We're going to at the pub. And what was that like? How did people trade money then? They just go in and, how did they bank, or what way did it work?
People didn't have a lot of money.
Aye. Yeah.
But the Ulster Bank was always there that I
Yeah,
remember.
but it was the First National.
For
or something.
National Bank.
Yeah.
And
And
was
it
there
came
an
there on a
optician
fair day.
Was there an optician came as well? Was there to Draperstown? No.
The Ulster
to
Bank
Mary
was
Pat's.
originally Ferguson's shop.
fella,
Ferguson's
Man
lived
Smith
up in
from
Cahor.
Crookside.
Right. He came to
Mary
Mary
Pat's
Pat's
too.
seemingly was a place where all these businesses, they rented a room, fair days and things like that there. It was,
Yeah.
And then McNally's, the solicitors used to have
That's right.
an office down Reagan's that opened
Yeah.
for a day or two in
Yeah.
the week. I think it was James McEldowney would have been there for a while too.
James just passed away there.
Yeah, he passed away this week.
That's right, yeah.
He ran it.
There seem to be a lot of different types of trades going on, I suppose, in the town. Like, as we were saying earlier on, Jennifer and John, and Tim chatting to you, Patsy, about, when you said, Jennifer, about the people that lived in the houses and the pre-living in them and what they were before, like it seems to be like every, I don't know if you'd say every 30, 40 years, there is a chance that a new generation of people seem to move in, even if you walk down the street, even the way you are talking about the street now, and when Morris Taylor Garrison was on speaking, like a completely different list of people, and talking about turkeys and hens down in the Diamond, John, all the different things that would have been going on then. That so I suppose what I want to ask now, and I suppose I'm not saying on a wide out thing, but have you any sort of memories of some of the characters that you wanted to talk out there that made you just laugh when you were younger, engaged you when younger, or you just thought they were complete? Do you know, don't want to say the word, because you know the world we're living now, I just say this, we're not allowed to say certain things.
Father Collins would have been a character at that stage. We would have been playing football on the pitches behind St. Columns, and as soon as we got word that Father Collins was coming, we had lookouts, and we suddenly changed from football to Gaelic. When we were
Don't think it ever worked though.
No,
You just like the soccer up in that Magherafelt Road, didn't you?
Well, you said earlier, going out in the fresh air. You at summertime. You literally left till 9 o'clock, and you came back in at 10. And most of our time was down the two football pitches in the back of the school.
Draperstown. They were the only pitches in Draperstown.
There you go.
And you just played there all day, every day. So you just played to whatever.
There was the Fair Hill pitch. That's before your boys' time.
Good man, Patsy. Tell us about that illustrious pitch.
That's where we always played.
There.
On the Fair Hill.
And who would have been there?
And we played hurling, and we played rugby.
There you go.
Jerry McCallion used to induce us into rugby. He would take about 10 wee boys, and he would say, "You're in that team," and myself, and 2 other boys would be in this team. He was about 6 foot tall, and he would start at the top of the hill, and he'd get the ball under his arm like that there, and he would just run through us like ninepins.
That's class.
And then we played the cricket too, and played football, and like that. We used to play soccer, and we'd have to change over half time and go to Gaelic there sometimes too.
And then there was a tennis court down where Workspace.
That's right.
And there was one out behind Alec Barclay's too in the garden.
That's right.
And was tennis a big thing then?
Well, it was.
Yeah.
During the summertime, whenever the school finished, and myself and Michael McNamee, we were the 2 youngest almost, and we were sent down by the likes of Pat and Cliffy McKenna and Paul McElhone, Pete McElhone, Henry Devlin, to ask permission to use the tennis courts, because nothing happened in this parish unless Father Collins gave you the nod. So we were, as the youngest, we were sent in to knock on the door in this holy of holies and bow, beg and scrape could we ask permission, and of course permission was always given. And of course we went back up and said, yes, we're allowed to play. That'll be because we were the youngest, we were never allowed to play. But that you almost had to book a court.
Aye.
But tennis was played, just nobody goes into it now. There's nobody in it now, but I mean, even in that time, they actually, amongst those lads, organised competitions and things like that there. But that place used to go 9 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. You know, it never stopped.
Did you think that created for yourselves a wider community engagement? You know, back in them days, do you know what I mean, John? From different parts of the town, or or would you just
most of the characters you played would have been from
our end of the town.
From that Magherafelt Road. So
there's no getting away from Magherafelt Road, is there?
We had our own private tennis club. There's not many places.
I knew it. And your own private policeman. I was there.
Well,
that's good. Like.
We used to have the swimming pool too. You know,
no wonder you didn't want anybody up there.
Further away now, it wasn't in the Draperstown.
Where
was the big hole, they used to call it, out the Derrynard Road.
And that's the men's swimming pool?
Yeah.
Out by the bridge?
Out by the bridge, you cut across, down to the left and across 2 fields.
Before our time, was there not a swimming pool behind Timney's?
Oh no, there were fountains.
But there was a swimming pool behind it.
There was a swimming pool behind that too.
Yeah, there was. And then the water was piped from Kitty Murray's, which is way up at that lane between Devlin's and our upper garage. Yeah. If you follow that lane way up to the top, there's a steel pipe comes down the whole way, brought water from the wee river up at Kitty Murray's down to supply the fountains and the swimming pool there.
So was that like a private swimming pool?
A private water supply.
I mean, Major Carlton would have been doing
Major
that.
Carlton.
Is that where the Tilmonys live?
Yeah, Laurelville.
And so behind that would have been...
There was a small swimming pool, and the 2 fountains in the garden were supplied with the water from that.
Wow. And so are they maybe still there?
The 2 fountains are
still there.
The American Army took it over for a few years during the war.
Right.
And they played baseball around the fountains, and
No way.
that was the
Was
end
there
of it.
any of the girls with the umbrellas queuing up,
No,
Patsy?
I just don't remember. It was the 1940s.
No, I'm sure there
All
was.
of them know that they used to be great with chewing gum, I think. You'd get
and,
chewing gum and sweets.
Going
and
back
stuff.
to your tennis court, two men that played an awful lot of tennis was Pete McElhone,
Henry Devlin.
Henry Devlin. But Pete McElhone did a commentary, and it was absolutely brilliant. And it was the time of the World Cup.
That's right.
And Germany had won the World Cup, and Gert Müller was the top scorer. And Pete McElhone came out with his classic line. He said he was the Gert Müller of the Draperstown tennis scene because he found the net more than anybody else.
Well, that was 70. That would be
72,
74 maybe.
Well, that was a clinker of a statement.
And just on the behalf of the water coming down there, you're saying, did you say Major something owned the house?
Major Carlton.
And Major Carton. Well, I just wanted to bring up a picture. I think there's only, I can only remember one, and that's out by the front of the chapel, was the fountains of old, the old water wheels, John. I know there's...
Yeah.
Oh, the old pumps.
So I know there's a certain name on them. I don't want to name... There's a name for them, isn't
Those
there?
are brandy well pumps that I associated.
Yeah. And so they were brought on when? At what stage? In
They were pumping from a well. Now there's about 20 yards further up the street, there's a smaller fountain which was on the water main. That was outside between Britain's and what I had known as Pat Cairns at that stage.
Yes, yes.
That there would have been 1960. Two.
They look
yeah.
amazing. Do you know?
Yeah.
I don't know why they'd ever been taken away. Or I know you had a few, maybe Ford Esconas to park there. Is that out the front?
That's out
Is
in
that
front
not your
of
house?
what was Bobby Taylor's.
Bobby Taylor's.
That window there, as you can see, is where we got our haircut.
I had taken part in a painting competition that the primary school had that time, and they submitted it for an All-Ireland competition, and I picked up an award on it, and Dennis Lagan had taken me picture and it was in the paper at that stage.
Is that picture there? Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And
that brandy well, wasn't the brandy well somewhere down?
No,
the
brandy
Road?
well was down the Tubbermore Road.
So I think that's where the water came from.
Yeah.
From those to those pumps.
And just because you know the way you see the American movies is all about water flying out of the pumps and all. What was the idea? Did people just need to go in them days and fill up, John?
There was no running water in any of the houses, so you pumped the water out of one of these pumps for your... there was another one down about Timney's as well, down in the main street.
There's another one down there in this... Where
there's
Christmas
one in the
tree
main
was.
square.
Yeah,
where the Christmas tree
down the
is,
Diamond.
And there was another one over on the Fair Hill, but they had to close it for health reasons, because the burial ground in the Church of Ireland was above it. They reckoned that the water was polluted, and there used to be a wee pub was on the Fair Hill in the Church of Ireland, in front of the Church of Ireland, and the date stone of it, when the house was tumbled, was taken down, and it's on a house, Jerry McAllister's down the Tubbermore Road. If you look on the gable end of the house, the date stone of the pub.
Wow.
No, I didn't know that. No,
There's
that's a good one, John.
grapes and glasses shown on the date stone to signify a pub.
That's amazing. And so I suppose, as you say there, for people looking back, they were important in an area.
Oh, yeah.
They were vital.
They were vital.
Yeah, and
There was one up the back road behind Rooney's too. There used to be a wee pump there.
Yes.
And there was one in our backyard.
We had two, for they needed them for the forge.
But they weren't
There
all...
you go.
They didn't all have the big side wheel.
No,
Some
no.
had like a little, just
top.
a wee top thing.
and do you still have any, Jennifer or John? Do you still have
There's one down in the shed still. Isn't
Yeah,
there?
there is.
That's amazing. And like, obviously they took away because times change and all, and
Well, by that time we all had water in our houses.
Yeah.
But
Aye.
the pumps were kind of obsolete then.
There was only maybe 2 or 3 houses that would have... Britain's originally would have taken water.
Miss Gallagher didn't.
Yeah, that's good.
yeah, and that's good. No, thanks for that. And just for people out there that wouldn't know that we'd looking at this here, I'm genuine and saying, what is that there? You know what I mean? And so I wanted to show a wee picture from back in the day in black and white of the area, and then what it looked like in 2020. So here we have back in the day, and we can see things like the infrastructure of the factories. John isn't there. You might be able to talk there, even up there. Obviously, the church is up there, but the diamond, it looks a bit, different. Or do you want to give a wee bit of insight into what it actually?
The road was cut. They reduced the height of it coming this way.
Yeah.
Conville's pub was at the corner there where Burns' shop used to be. For my father said that as children they used to pour water on the street during the winter time and then sleigh down the street. And, there wasn't the same traffic then that you wouldn't have been going out in front of one of Towermore sand and gravel lorries.
And even the likes of the Church of Ireland, you can see it there, John, and the Fair Hull. And so see there, just and as you go out to Derrynard Road, see, that's all the concord trees, is it? Just the old trees, and so the back of that for people to know would be, is that the shambles now, as we know?
No. It's over to your right.
There were two shambles.
That line of dark trees coming down Derrynard Road. They were the concord trees there. Yeah. And then there's like sort of Reagan's pub up from it. And then the football ground, but those were the concord trees.
That's the plantation part there.
And see across from the trees, is that like houses? Would there been houses there?
There's the old oratory.
The old oratory.
And that's Convery's.
That's still there.
And there's the old oratory.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you see...
then the planting in between, sort of.
Yeah, the planting, and for suppose, for now, the development, if we could just see the mountain again, just there back. So there we're looking at it now, and back in them days, like as yourselves growing up, there wasn't as much industry, and there wasn't as much going on. And then we'll take a look now.
Well, you see, at that stage, they had a shirt factory or two in Draperstown.
Yeah.
Down where Sperrins Electronics is there now. That was a shirt factory.
Didn't know that, John.
There was another shirt factory behind where Paddy Hearn's chemist shop was.
There you go.
Carlton's had a shirt factory there at that stage as well. There was a fair bit of industry about the town at that stage.
And so I didn't know that about the shirt factories. I just took the shirt factories to be, John Burns's and all. But obviously before that, John, there was people.
Yeah, there was indeed.
And like tailors and different things. So there we are now. If anybody wants to look and see from when you were... I just wanted to show the bottom end of the town because you didn't talk much, Patsy, about the bottom end of the town. So I'm going to show it all to you now. Just so... You can still see sit-out places, but it's just that picture now. If you look at it for where we were earlier on and how, obviously, Cohor's built on the mountain, as you can see, but how it's changed, and
even since that, it's changed quite a bit.
Yes, obviously the new offices of Herrenbrauers and stuff. But why I wanted to bring it up too, and to show about, I suppose, the history and heritage of the area. As you go up, there's certain areas in the town and the houses and going up by yourselves hasn't changed. The shape of which is brilliant, and your own house in the row that you're living, John. But you can see there how Hearns and the Yardmaster and the different houses, like it was Cohor Heights or Cohor Heights is built up above now, and all the different estates, So you can see I suppose I would call it new beginnings. Some people would say it's industry, and I suppose I've talked to certain businessmen and saying that industry finds it hard to grow in this area because it's not designated.
Yeah,
the land, John. If that's
but the green fields that you still see up there were predominantly your parade ground.
Yeah. There you go.
Because that's from basically the Presbyterian Church, those fields up there, and to the left were Bradley Park and Glen Shane Park up to Hagensfield.
Yeah.
That was our playground.
There you go.
We called it Mulligan's.
Well,
yeah.
There you are.
And you would have known back in the 1960s, you would have known everybody who lived at, say, on the Magherafelt Road.
You knew everybody in the town.
You knew everybody in the town.
Yeah.
Now we wouldn't even know. I personally would not even know who lives on the Magherafelt Road.
Well, having said that, there's still certain names that have been on the Magherafelt Road for a long time.
Yeah, and I mean,
and hence here, and the O'Kanes and
a few of them.
Yeah.
Very few.
Yeah, but you didn't just still fly the flag, you're still, and I mean, I'm sure, like, like you mentioned, John, earlier on, like your father and your grandfather, that would leave your family name a long, long time.
Our family name, believe, was along with your man O'Keane, that you mentioned there earlier.
Pat?
Martin O'Keane's family and our family were the two
McNamee's.
Oldest family names continuously in the town.
Yeah. And who else do you say there, Jennifer?
Well, McNamee's were a long time in the town.
But they weren't as long as the Keanes.
McNamee's, Lachlan McNamee was one of the founders of the town.
But they were from Mawhinney out.
But then he settled in the town.
Yeah.
Aye. But
he was the man that brought the market from Mawhinney into Draperstown.
I didn't know that. What's that? So
Lachlan McNamee.
So the market was in Mawhinney, is that what you said?
Market was in Mawhinney, and then he brought it into the crossroads.
Up where the wee old school was, up at the fork of the road there.
Yeah. And what timeline are we talking now, Pat?
God, good question.
The early 1800s.
Had to be.
Wow.
He's
I
can see Patsy. Well, on we went. I was doing it 4 times tables that time.
Lachlan McNamee's grave is just literally inside, down in the bottom corner of the straw old graveyard, down beside the main gates.
That's amazing.
Just in there. So it has to be sometime. Must have been the early 1800s.
So he was a man of stature then.
But he brought the market from Mawhinney into the town.
And did that become then, like the sales market?
Yep.
And
You see, there were 2 markets in the town.
Right.
The lower end of the town is Skinners, and the upper end Drapers.
Right.
And where Macaulay's shop, the Diamond there, that was a market too. That was a shambles.
The shambles was in behind Paul Reagan's. That was the Skinners.
Yeah.
But
That's the old shambles, isn't that right?
Shambles.
It's still there. Because I remember being in there,
It was all wooden structures, wasn't it? The shambles, most of it.
a lot of wee houses built around the square.
That's right. So there'd be a good. So the old shambles, basically, if you maybe I'm wrong, if you keep going on down, and it sort of links into what has become, the shambles across from the chapel. Is that right? The behind Reagan's.
Lincoln. Yes.
Because I used to see, even when I was younger, I used to cross the wee bridge. The wee bridge.
That's
but
right.
there were still bits of sales going on in the old shambles at that time. Before that, and that's interesting. There, John, you're saying so. The Skinners had their own.
Half of the town, and the Drapers developed the upper end of the town with the more sandstone, cut sandstone finish.
Like this building here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the church over the road. Yeah.
And
Your cut-off point was Mary Pat's.
Yeah.
That's where your 3 town lands meet up at.
there's a wee river runs under
Under the
this.
town.
I remember when we were children, it had been dug up and pipes going on.
My Hill and my Cairn, they were Drippers. And the bottom end of the town was Cahor. That was where Cahor commenced. That was your division between the Drippers and the Skinners.
So the Skinners then started at Cahor, is that right?
Mary Pat's.
Mary Pat's.
Mary Pat's was the very first.
Yeah.
So-
What way did I don't know? Maybe you don't know, but so they basically, to me, it sounded as if there was 2 parts of the town trading on their own. John, would that be right?
Separately.
Aye.
Yeah.
And maybe all the chatting we've been doing so far, this could be the miraculous answer for why Ian's felt disjointed from the rest of the town, because obviously you were in a part of the town, let's say that the development that was going on was maybe better than maybe the Skinners. Did they do any kind of development? I don't know of any development they did. The Drippers Company built the courthouse, now right, John?
Yeah.
And across from the courthouse, people look back around here in the corn store and the church. And did they build the wee?
They built 2 or 3 schools. One Carnamoney, one at Black Hill, and the other one out at
Near Moneymore.
near Moneymore, Turgan. Draperstown was known as
Cross.
the Cross at one stage. Where
The town of the cross.
yeah.
Molly McGuigan's was the Long Common, all right?
Yeah,
Pat's?
the Long Common.
And that's where your 3 town lands basically met, out in the middle of that street opposite Molly's. So in front of in front of Mary Pat's and Molly's. That was the division.
There you go. And
But then that Drapers, you know, the very design of the diamond, as we know,
triangle.
along the front, that green along the front of that, where basically we are
Yeah.
now,
Aye.
was part of their design of
Planned towns.
planned towns, maybe a bit more green areas, etc., and so on. And those the London companies, I suppose, in a lot of the little villages out with that districts, but that's quite an impressive one in terms of. Look, you mentioned Money More. There's nothing like that as such in Money More.
yeah,
You know.
I think the Skinners got the poor end of the stick as it comes to Draperstown. The better end of the land was certainly from the middle of the town there out either the Desert Martin Road or out the Tobermoor Road.
the Skinners would have felt bad
whereas you
done
were
by.
heading up,
Well, the
up
Skinners
towards-
wouldn't have been as an important
It's the Drapers.
as the Drapers. The Drapers are among the top 6, isn't it?
They're the second richest company, London company.
Guilds, and they get called guilds, is that right? The Rippers Guild.
Yeah.
And,
Guilds.
and there's so many guilds in London. There's 18
Yeah.
or something. There's fishery guilds and all these different types of dudes and traders. I'm sure all, you know, over the years became that type of guilds. And we got the Rippers Company as such. And I know they've been, would you say then, I suppose everybody, if they want to say, would you feel they were influential then in the town and its shape and how it's laid out?
They've obviously left their mark.
Oh yes.
And they
You know,
planned the town.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's,
Yeah.
They brought their architects in, and I
Yep.
mean,
Yeah.
they brought in the builders because they thought the native Irish couldn't build, and the important buildings like the way they wanted.
And so there was nobody local then, but about these are people.
Well, they would have employed local men.
Yeah.
Just labourers, probably, by the sounds of
A
things.
lot of the sandstone was brought down from Dramard. There was a quarry there.
Yeah. And or out from Monaghan.
Young's Quarry,
Young's.
and
Young's
Dramard
and
and Mulligan's.
Mulligan's. So.
Out in Dunmurray and Monaghan. They were the two
There you
local
go.
quarries.
And that stone, that obviously that's used, would that be sought after now, John, or is it gone? That type of
Well, there's no quarries like that
Yeah.
open locally anymore. I know there was a scheme a few years ago in our own house. There was a number of stones had to be replaced in it, and they had to bring the stone, and I think it actually came from Bath at that stage.
There you are.
To replace it. So
And that's real interesting. And you were saying about running up the back of the fields. I'm not going to keep you much longer. And thanks for coming in. We mentioned earlier on the Balmoral show, but I just want to let people out there know that we had our own Balmoral show, hadn't we? And just behind your house, is that right, John?
no. The Balmoral show was over in
St. Columba's High.
St. Columba's High.
No, the school was the
school was
venue.
used.
Aye.
Yeah.
But you see, you mentioned something about agriculture shows that were in the town
Yeah.
for a short while. And so how did they come about? There was two, you think, mentioned to me.
They ran for a short number of years. They ran an agricultural show and a
Yes.
horticultural show.
Yes.
I don't know who was involved in that. But again,
Reverend Duff
Reverend
Duff
Duff,
was- yeah,
very
yeah.
man,
and Father
Reverend Duff.
Collins and people like that.
And this was in the 1960s, before the Troubles broke out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember the police from Mount Pottinger in Belfast had a famous tug-of-war team.
did.
And I remember them pulling Bankrin down on the school field in the final of whatever that competition was.
And
that
who won? Bankrin.
I think Bankrin beat them.
Bankrin won, didn't they, Pat?
Bankrin
beat them 2-1. There you go. I read that. No,
two pulls
Pat,
to one.
I am not here for no reason. I did my homework.
That has to be about 1967, 68.
Well, and could you just get a feel of that? What was there? Like what was there?
There was tractor reversing. There was
sheepdog trials. There'd have been clay pigeon shooting organised in the back football fields and so on. But the high school was the centre pretty much of everything. So there was those 2 days, which were they were exciting days as us for kids because literally we could throw our legs over the fence. Our house was next door, so anything was going on was great.
Yeah.
So you had
Patsy, of course, made another fortune in those days. The crowds were that there. The fish being held there pretty much a long time was another pull. that school was used for, boxing tournaments when the boxing club was going really, really well.
Yeah.
Some fantastic nights in there. And film shows.
In other words, Magherafelt Road went from having nothing to be the centre of the Mecca.
See, I don't know where this crack about we get nothing from. I think you said far too much, and there's more butter than everybody and more margin, more everything. But
at a price.
So I suppose there are things that, you can look back innocently on and know that they were very enjoyable, I'm sure. But I'm going to let you into one secret into Patsy's empire, right? So there was a certain time of the year, and it was called Halloween. Yeah. And so Patsy, look, everybody tried this one with Patsy. How much is a penny chew? And Patsy probably heard it a million times and went out to his wife and goes, "Oh, I heard this and again and again." And you had asked for 10, Patsy, and hoped you'd give me 11. You gave me 11 one time, so you did. But I was honest. I'm back in and told you. And you said to me, "That's the first time." You said to me, "I'm only testing your honesty." But Patsy used to get the toffee apples and I don't know if you tested them, John. I know they're brilliant for your teeth out there now, anybody listening. But this gentleman used to come to Patsy and he had his own mix. So Patsy, do you want to tell a wee story about the toffee apples and how it was a gold mine for you? Never mind the religious memorabilia we talked about. Never mind the newspapers and the penny chews. This was one I think the people should hear.
A gentleman, a German gentleman actually. He was Harry Weiner, they called him. And he was married to a lady from Magherafelt. But he started life in Berlin or some German city. And he had told me in broken English about how he tried so many different things. Everything he started would go well for about 6 months or a year and then collapse right on him. So that lasted a few years, so he decided he would move to London. And he came to London too, and the same thing happened. Time and time again, whenever things were going well, it just collapsed. So he married this lady from Magherafelt and arrived in Magherafelt. And he used to come up to me about 2 weeks before Halloween, and he'd eat toffee apples. And they really went down a bomb. And I was selling maybe about 10 dozen a week. No, 10 dozen a day, sorry. And they lasted for 2 weeks. And
sticky money, they call it.
One of the best times of the year. The profit on it was fairly good.
Well, I can tell you now, as a non-shopkeeper, off the record, 50% profit. Is that right,
Just
Patrick?
another story I would tell about this time of the year, Christmas. It was always a lot of hard work and a lot of extra work going on. But at that time, there was a custom of giving Christmas boxes. Every shop in the town did it.
That's right, yeah.
And so you made out your list, you started the good ones with a half tin of biscuits. You came down to a half pound of tea and a 3 and 6 fruit loaf. Mm-hmm. So you went down to the half pound of tea and a 2 and 6 fruit loaf. But this lady in particular, she was out Desert Martin area anyway, but she'd only start coming about the end of November. You wouldn't have seen her then from one end of the year to November. So she started coming a week, right to the beginning of December. Then she'll start coming 2 days a week. Till coming near Christmas, she'll be in 3 days a week. And all she was buying was very, very, very little stuff, just enough to show her face. So the last year when the customs were being removed, Christmas was on a Saturday. And she arrived in on the Monday, she arrived in on the Wednesday, and she arrived in on Thursday. And no Christmas box. And on the way out, she turned around, "I was not given Christmas boxes this year."
But that was a custom. All the shops gave their all the shops would have, if you were a regular customer, you got a Christmas box from the shop.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that was
Tins of peaches and
cigarettes.
And
Or,
some of them actually give you like a pale blue cardboard box made up.
Yeah.
That about 18 inches square.
like old tomato boxes or something like that. So, yeah, that was a custom.
In days before that, when my father used to be going strong there, the men at Christmas would have bought bottles of whiskey for the man in the house.
Mm-hmm.
The lady of the house never was taken into it at all. She never was mentioned. But my father used to have maybe about 6. The boys would buy the bottle of whiskey and they'd be afraid of keeping it at home in case they would drink them.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad would have had about 6 bottles of whiskey sitting behind the counter. And that's all right. Each man came in and got his bottle of whiskey. And this wee man came in and my dad lifted the bottle, handed it to him, and the bottle slipped out of his hand and hit the floor and bounced. And the boy caught the bottle of whiskey, and that was it was very nearly going into smithereens.
Oh, brilliant.
But a few years after that, then the ladies came into their own. They were getting the boxes of chocolates along with the bottle of whiskey. So I decided I would buy a few boxes. And I bought about 35 boxes of chocolates. And I'd left them in a nice prominent place, like so. You know, you'd see them and you'd keep pushing them. But up until 2 days before Christmas, nobody mentioned a box of chocolates. And the sweat was starting.
You'd get the product, you couldn't get rid of it.
My father would buy them and he'd be looking at them and he'd be looking at me and he would say, what about these chocolates? But I remember 2 days before Christmas, this man came in, Matt Taylor actually. Matt was a bread man at that time. Matt wanted 2 boxes of chocolates. And I wasn't up, it was about 8 o'clock or something. And my dad shouted, there's a man here looking for 2 boxes of chocolates. And I jumped. I nearly jumped through the ceiling there to get down. And from that till about 11 o'clock on Christmas night, or Christmas Eve night, all the boxes went.
That's good.
It's a great relief there now, all over.
The power of Paddy Peel.
That was the power, you know.
Well, if they hadn't been sold, the mix-ups for the kids going to school in January would have been very interesting. There wouldn't have been a 10p mix-up, I'll tell you that.
Patsy invented pick and mix. He was pick and mix. You know?
Before Walmart.
I tell you, before any of them. But look, I don't want to be keeping you anymore. I just want to say thank you, John. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Patsy. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Pat. And I hope you enjoyed it and it wasn't too sore onions. And if there's anything you want to say now before you're putting across the road there in the jail and the old courthouse, if there's anything else you just want to say, feel free to say it. And if you haven't, it's 100%. But
maybe just on behalf of this group, I think I've watched quite a few of your podcasts, and what you've been doing, and all the group is compiling all of this history and the thoughts and the memories of Draperstown and the surrounding areas is a wonderful thing, and more power to your elbow.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Just for the folks out there, this was recorded on the day that Shane McGowan, one of the greatest musicians in Ireland, had his mass.
Exactly right, and we feel well holy, don't we, Patsy? Don't we, Patsy?
Yeah.
And John and Jennifer. I know, and there's one last thing I wanted to say, just because you all know this man, and it's not a sad thing; it's a rejoicing thing, because it just come up on Facebook. A new, I suppose, the site Facebook now where all information seems to land. But Davy Kane's shop is closed today for the last time, and well, anybody out there listening to this, and you all know Davy well. He was a prominent businessman back in the day, and I think the bar might still be open. I'm not sure, but definitely the newsagent is closed. And I suppose I wanted to bring it up, and I wanted to say good luck to Davy from me anyway, and all our team here, and I wish him the best. And I wanted also to bring it up that maybe yourselves might have a wee story that you wanted to say about, because I know, Michael, you spoke about there's Paul Reagan's Butchers and Davy's shop. Had this drawn attention?
Well, certainly on Saturday morning there was a certain the percentage of the male population. They were always sent out to Paul's to get their meat, but between Paul's and Davy's almost any morning, but certainly a Saturday morning was always the meeting point. And if anything happened in the previous 24 hours, you found that this was before Facebook, and was probably more efficient than Facebook and more accurate than Facebook.
Well, definitely.
It was that, and just, I mean, it's another loss. We talked about on the Magherafelt Road, Patsy's and Devlin's and et cetera and so on. But to lose like shops like Paul Regas Butchers and Davies, that's a big loss to the town and the community, you know.
Yeah.
So now if you want to go and hear all the local news, go to John Johnston's garage on the Magherafelt Road. It's still there.
Between John Johnston's and Patsy's house, that's where it's going to happen, all the news.
That's what's happening. And if it's not happening, you'll hear about it.
It's brilliant. And you certainly summed it up brilliant there, Michael, because Davy is part of that, a generation gone by. And as I say, so many memories, Pat.
I certainly remember being in Davy's mother's shop.
Yeah.
Roseanne McQuaid's.
Roseanne.
So that takes you back 60 years ago.
Sweeties on your way to
60 odd years ago.
60 years.
So a wee bit inside. So that was who Davy's mother.
Davy's mother had a wee shop.
It was further down the street.
Further on down.
Yeah, not the same location.
Another side of the entry from Dan McCauley's.
Yeah.
There you go.
That was the wee shop.
There you are.
So postcards, and if you had a few of those postcards that were
Davy's
sold
house
60
was
years
just
ago.
machine too. Kind of.
Well, where Davies is now, that was a chemist shop.
That was
a chemist.
Zucchini's.
Ms. Zucchini's.
No, it was a grocery shop. Rogers's.
Probably like Rogers's. And then O'Keenney's.
Then
O'Keenney's.
James O'Keenney married a daughter, and he came in and took a branch of it there.
Patsy, it's your historical experience of years gone by that you would know that. Us young ones only have that.
Patsy's just checking you on the 18s there, just to check us down
I was
there.
very friendly with a big fella down.
I'm
Colin
glad you said fella there.
He lived just opposite Rogers.
Brilliant.
And Colin and I would be going over for some things. We were about school time at that.
But what did you say, Colin? Who did you
Colin
say?
McAlary. He lived where Jim McGuigan, God rest him, lived.
There you go.
And they were great. The father was a
Cattle
great
dealers.
storyteller and a great singer. He was a cattle dealer.
Aye.
And,
Joe.
but Colin and I would have been friendly, and we'd have gone across to Willie McShane worked on it at that particular time. Gone across to Willie McShane and get the wee bits and pieces of stuff, and Willie would give Colin a handful of sweets, and he would say, "Leave the foreigner across the top of the road there," and call me the foreigner. I didn't mind for getting half of the sweets.
And that's why you give me 11 instead of 10.
Yep.
Honestly.
Famous, reminds me when you mentioned the word Rogers and McBride, famous story of a card school in Monaghan. What was it? Joe McBride was there, and he was paired with Irene Rogers. And Irene, let's face it, mustn't have had a clue about playing cards, because it was just mistake after mistake after mistake. And Joe never said anything. Joe was the partner. But Irene copped on from Joe's facial expression that this wasn't going well. And she had the courage to say to Joe, "Mr. McBride, did I make a mistake?" And Joe he says, "No, Miss Rogers, you didn't make a mistake. The man at the door who let you in made the mistake."
That's brilliant. Well, thank you all very much. And I always do it then when there's a big crowd. Give yourselves a wee round of applause, because you were brilliant. Thank you. And we're going to get a wee photo tin, aren't we? Just together. Where are we going to do that, Nathan? I know if it's still recording, isn't it? Yeah, I just wanted to thank Tierney on camera, Nathan on all sound and all, and Stella on production. Thank you in the back there. You keep me
very
right.
much.
Yeah, and you're doing a good job. Apart from slagging me off, and the guys can't hear. I can hear you, but they can't hear. But it's been brilliant, and thanks, Michael. As you said, it's all about capturing the stories of the past and looking, I suppose, to the future. And I know I've talked to people that have been listening to them that. It certainly made them think about their time.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'd say, and it's great to be in here with people that, like Jennifer and John, that were part of the historical society back in the day, that is keeping the stories from then alive, and hopefully people will see this. And I wanted to just finish off with I suppose I forgot, and I don't think I brought it up, was the film that you've done a way back in the historical society and the CD. I had it to show it in my hand, but I didn't bring it up. But maybe we'll get it dropped in. Just to say that what you captured then was unbelievable, and it was a time of I don't know, I don't want to use the wrong words, but it was a time of peace and tranquility, and I suppose a community, you know, as such. And hopefully people that are listening to that can still feel that we're still a community and we still have stories to tell, and hopefully in the future other people will take up the baton if they're mad enough to tell the stories that are coming through in the future, which I probably will talk about down the line. And I'll be talking, I should say, to other groups in the area with this run of podcasts, and sometimes people can be doing great work but nobody knows they're there, and that's what I suppose will be good about it all too, the stories going out. But thank you very much. I know you maybe do you get tea or cocoa or coffee at night, or biscuits or toast, or well, who eats what? John, what do you take at supper time?
Very little. I
thought you were going to say very liquid. Jesus.
Very little. I would go to my bed and that's about it.
So Jennifer, do you eat supper then? No.
No, we never have a supper.
No way. Patsy?
No.
No.
That's how we've lived so long.
I tell you what. So anybody out there, I've had a few health and food talks to people over here. So basically, no more supper, people, right? No more late carry out food. Isn't that what we're saying?
Oh, never.
Never. And that was the thing. Just I suppose in your day there was none of that. There was no.
Rogers did
Chip shop.
Chip shop.
That was the beginning of a chip shop.
And Frank Cassidy, you brought in frozen meals. Do you remember there was fish and
chips
and peas?
Yeah.
And a wee tinfoil dish.
Bird's eye was it?
Patsy, did you do meal deals back in the day?
And the black and white box there.
Yeah.
Patsy, you're ahead of the game. Patsy, you're ahead of the game. Patsy's the big time grocer. He's a secret assassin. He's got he got made quick bucks with the eggs,
The lucky dips.
the lucky dips, and the Halloween apples with the toffee. And then, did you actually do meals? Like, you know, Jennifer?
No, they just those frozen
ones.
That's brilliant.
They were like a TV dinner type of thing.
like TV
That's amazing. And they're a big thing again now.
Yeah.
they're big.
Patsy, you're ahead of the game. I'll tell you again.
You were talking about school days there. My father said that when he was at school, most of the children all went barefooted down to the Burnside, to the school there. And he said that the children all wore like dresses until they were maybe 7 or 8 years of age. The boys.
There you go. Was that just the
It was the custom of that. He said if you were well off, you maybe had a set of clogs.
Jeez.
And this takes one ahead, John.
There was a Master McGuigan who would have been the principal.
Was he a bad boy? Was he?
I seemed like he came in full drunk most times and wearing a set of +4 trousers, you know, these and stuff. And I don't think they learnt that much other than
how to get drunk.
Finally, I'll tell you my last story. You've mentioned the food outlets in Draperstown.
Yes.
Well, the other major outlets that they have are the beauty salons, which must tell you something about the females.
Yes.
But my mother told the story at the beginning of the intermediate school. It opened in May 1961. There's no books in it. So she carried with her one book called The First Aid in English, which had lists of things. And she was entertaining these young gentlemen once a day, or whatever the case may be, who were, let's face it, had 6 weeks left of school. So she was doing opposites of words with them. So she wrote the word beautiful on the board and asked for a volunteer to come and write the opposite. So a certain gentleman, who we all know, but he's no longer with us, came up and wrote WILELUCKEN. Wild looking. A good old Draperstown expression. Now that there, when I look around the number of beauty salons they have in Draperstown at the minute, that was 1961. So did he or did he not know?
He's seen it.
He saw that there was an opening there for...
You're treading very dangerous ground there. Very dangerous
Well,
ground.
I suppose...
Very thin ice.
Oh, boy.
I suppose what we would know now is the beauty industry has become a global case, and I suppose
And Draperstown could be the centre of the Magherafelt Road.
the Magherafelt Road had got all the nice colours and all the nice eyebrow shifters, but no, well, that's brilliant, and thank you very much everybody for coming, and we'll get a wee picture downstairs. Is that all right, Dave?